Hello and welcome to the fifth and final round of the SRO Esports GT Series for 2020. A pleasure to have you with us for the final two rounds of this five-round competition that we started at Silverstone a few months ago. Before that, of course, there was the charity race at Monza, but now it is title deciding day. My name is Jack Nichols. Alongside me in the virtual studio is David Addison as we get ready for the pro race and the silver race. We will have a 1 hour race for both of those, and it is Louis Delatraz who is leading the way in the pro class. Patrick Selva is leading the standings in the silver class. David, the action today at Kyalami, a track that was voted for by the fans.
And it's been a good choice because it's got a real mix, Jack, of fast corners, of challenging bits for the drivers, and also variable weather. And I suspect that it's going to be the silver drivers who cop for the worst of the conditions rather than the pros. But we are going to have the championship leader for the pros, Louis Delatraz, starting on pole position. He comes here with a good advantage in the championship, but he also has to drop his worst score. Now, there are four people that can win in pro: Louis Delatraz, Lorenzo Marcucci, Ben Barnicoat, and Ivan Pereiras. Of the four, only Delatraz has a score to drop. The others have all got a 0, but Delatraz has to drop 4 points. So the irony of this, because of drop scores, is he might end up being beaten by somebody with fewer points because of this drop score rule. So he needs to try to make sure those 4 points as the drop score don't become a big factor at the end of the hour.
Yeah, he's been very consistent this year in the championship, scored points in every round, as you alluded to, the only driver to have done that. So he has 59 points, which is 55 after the drop scores, and Marcucci has 49, Ben Barnicoat 43, Ivan Pereiras on 36. As David said, those are the only drivers in contention for this race. Grid-wise, Delatraz starts on pole, Di Lorenzo is second, Jordan Pepper is third, and Marcucci is in fifth position, David, and Pereiras in ninth. So I'm going to say the same thing I've said at the previous four rounds. The championship leader starting on pole position looks to be in good shape, but that is never how it ends up being.
Well, no, you're right. History over this championship has proved us wrong in that. Delatraz should be in the box seat. He's on pole position. He's got the inside line. He's got the run all the way down to turn one. And then the actual proper first corner itself is a kink at turn one, effectively, and then you go sharp left at Crowthorne. Now, if he can get through that without dramas, yes, he should be away. But don't forget, the car still has to lug round 25 kilos of extra weight, given its results last time out at Barcelona. But you've got the weight, you've got the pinch point of Crowthorne, all to be negotiated. If he can get through that, and Delatraz has proved to be a very canny driver so far in the championship, I think he's going to be hard to beat. But you're right, Jack, history has not been kind to the pole man in the championship thus far.
No, 10th on the grid for this race is going to be David Perel, the regular GT World Challenge racer. He's got a new academy, Coach Dave Academy it's called. It's running cars in this race, and he's available for training in the sim and the real world. Let's take a look. Now, it wouldn't be an SRO GT race without the wonderful sounds of five-time Grand Prix winner John Watson. Let's bring him in now. Watty, good afternoon. The final round of the championship all builds up to this at Kyalami. You excited?
Very excited, Jacko. Anyway, congratulations. 3 years in the book. Many more to go, I hope. Aside from all that, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. 16 corners here at Kyalami. It's a 4.5 kilometer circuit. Very tight. Now, look, Delatraz on pole position in the sort of the best place you can be. Further back, Marcucci in the Audi. Well, fifth place, third row of the grid. Just thinking back to the beginning of December in 2019 when we were here for the 9 hours of Kyalami, overtaking was the key, or in fact, for many cases, the lack of the key, because nobody could actually open the door. They couldn't find a way through. So we will watch and see whether in a sim event, overtaking is going to be any easier or more difficult. I don't know. We'll find out very soon.
Yeah, Really looking forward to this. Let's bring in Ben Constanduras as well, our sim racing correspondent. Ben, this Kyalami circuit, we haven't seen it yet for you guys, but you'll see it in a couple of moments. It looks absolutely incredible on Assetto Corsa, and there were, of course, a multitude of tracks that could have been voted for.
Yeah, absolutely. All the intercontinental tracks were available to vote for, and this one of the least known, I suppose, only finished in 2015 in its present form. I'm not so sure how many of these drivers will have huge experience. The tracks we visited before, the likes of Barcelona, Spa-Francorchamps, we know them very, very well from years and years of being simulated on loads of different platforms. But Kyalami, I don't think appears on any different platform. It's only on this particular ACC platform. It looks beautiful, but I think track knowledge could also be a factor.
Yeah, I think that's going to be very interesting, actually. And Louis Delatraz, the championship leader, said that he asked all of his fans on Twitter to vote for Kyalami because he thought it would suit his Porsche best. He didn't want to go to Bathurst because there wouldn't be a huge amount of power at the end of the long straight. So he tried to get all his fans to vote for Kyalami. It looks as though they have managed to do the trick. Let's take a closer look at this circuit, shall we, with the Fanatec track guide.
Hey everyone, I'm Jody Fannin. I'm driving the BMW M6 for Volcanos Motorsport, and here's my guide to the Kyalami Grand Prix circuit. I actually grew up in South Africa, so it's quite cool to be here for the final round. Hope you enjoy it. So here we go for a lap of the Kyalami Grand Prix circuit. It's a really wide open run down to turn 1, which could make for some interesting moves on the first lap of the race. It'll be exciting to watch. Keep the car over to the right, hard on the brakes. Down to first gear. It's really easy to go in too quick here, so you want to be patient. Don't let the car run too wide, so that you can keep it flat through this right and left. Avoid the yellow curb, on the brakes and turn at the same time, which makes it quite tricky. Run over the curb on the exit, but not too wide. It'll spit you into the wall on the left. Important to get a good run out of there as it's uphill all the way to sunset. Flick the car in, be patient. Back on the power again. You can use the curb, but you don't want to run too wide because it's very, very bumpy on the exit. Over to the right, on the brakes, pick the power up nice and early. Again, use all the curb on the exit. Blind turn into the next one, which makes it really tricky to know where to turn. You can use a little bit of the curb on the left, but you don't really want to use too much on the right, it'll spit you off. Use the curb on the exit, and then all the way up to the hairpin. Really tricky to see your turning point for this one, and the exit as well. Pick the power up. It's quite easy to run too wide and onto the grass, so just be careful. Flat out left-hander down here. There's a bit of a bump in the middle with some sparks flying off the cars at this time of day, which will make it quite exciting. Hard on the brakes again. Down to first gear. Be patient. On the power. You can run quite wide here, but not too wide. And then keep to the left for the flick to the right. Just avoid the sausage curb on the inside, or life gets a bit too exciting. And again, it's bumpy on the exit. On the brakes, down to first gear. On the power early for a good run down to turn 1. And that is a lap of the Kyalami Grand Prix circuit. Enjoy.
So there's the Fanatec lap tutorial then around this Kyalami circuit. Really interesting point that Ben made there, because while we were watching that video, I was trying to remember if I'd driven this track in any game, and I can't think of any. You know, you get Monza, Spa, Silverstone in any sort of major racing title, but yeah, Kyalami a little more niche. Formula One stopped going there in, I've committed to this, I think 1993, David, was the last Formula One visit to Kyalami?
There certainly was a Formula One visit then, but the circuit has changed again anyway.
Yeah.
This is a different iteration of Kyalami. It keeps reinventing itself. It sort of moved away further down the mountain from the original Kyalami circuit. I mean, when John and I were there last year, we were very, very impressed with the facility. Inevitably, it's going to be compared against the original circuit. And I think one of the reasons that everybody had such a good time there last year was because it was new to all of them, and they'd gone not knowing what to expect and discovering this very impressive facility. It's got good pit garages. It's a challenge for the drivers. It may not be the original, but as a modern day circuit, it was a big hit.
Yeah, it certainly was. The 9 hours at the end of last, a lot of rain, I think, wasn't there, which is something that we may see again today. Hopefully not as much rain as last year. I'm sure there were red flags, weren't there?
No, they kept going, although we had
did they?
a good hour or so of safety car. We had rain late in the day, which affected some of the qualifying and practice sessions. But for the race, Alain Adam, who was the race director, kept everybody going behind the safety car. And of course, you had the team shouting, "We need to stop this." Well, they were all the teams that were in a good position to score a win from where they were. But Alain kept it going into the last hour. It just stopped raining enough to then start to dry. So he did have a final hour, give or take, of racing. And that started to shuffle what was the ultimate order in the Intercontinental GT Challenge. So it was worth sticking with it.
Absolutely. We're looking now at Louis Delatraz and Luigi Di Lorenzo's laps in qualifying as they come out over the start-finish straight down towards turn 1, separated by barely anything at the line. But John, how important was this for Louis Delatraz to secure that pole position in his championship fight?
Well, the irony is he's scored in every round, but of course the rules for the championship mean that you have to drop your worst score. So his worst score is 4 points. So the importance of pole position was even more focused on that single 4-point drop that he's going to have to take. And those that are around him who have had 0 points results in some of the previous 4 events, all they can do is thinking about going forward. But as I said in that earlier comment, it is a tough circuit to overtake on. It's a very busy circuit. It's not that great deal length. None of the corners are what I would call high-speed corners, other than the curve that you come down to through the kink down into Crowthorne. The next quickest corner in reality would be Sunset, one of the original circuit corners on this original Kyalami circuit, which I raced on. I hate going back, guys. I know you bore me. But anyway, it was a wonderful circuit. What we have now got is a thoroughly modern version for Kyalami. It was altered about because the concern was it was a bit, and they added a kink, which is now Yuxke Sweep, and that was one of the famous Kyalami in the old circuit. And that leads into Barbecue, another one of the old corner names, and then from Barbecue all the way up to the highest part of the racetrack, those are the original corners, and in fact the circuit is following the direction that those corners would have taken place back in the, can't remember how long ago it was. Very long time ago, I can tell you.
No, we can believe it. So across the line came Louis Delatraz then in the Porsche to secure his pole position. Di Lorenzo second on the grid. Jordan Pepper third on the grid, which was a good drive from Pepper, who's been a front runner on occasion. David, we're looking at the top 12 here. What else stands out to you?
Angus Fender, debut in the championship as a wild card. He's part of the 2Cs motorsport team for McLaren. Because he's a wild card, he won't score points, and yet he's up there on the second row of the grid. So that's something else just to factor in as we're thinking about who is scoring what. You've got a driver who could be in that leading gaggle who doesn't score, and therefore everybody would move up a place. But he was very impressive indeed in that qualifying session this morning. Andy Suchek having a good run. Good to see him going well. And it's looking pretty good for McLarens. There are quite a lot of McLarens up within that top dozen or so, and Ben Barnicoat has got to make some progress in his McLaren up from 16th. So there's a lot to look for depending on where Delatraz is. If he can get through turn 2 still in the lead, I fear he's going to be away and gone. Then we have to get the calculators out and see what's going on behind him.
Yeah, the calculators I think are going to be even more important for the Silver Cup race that we will have after this first 1 hour. We mentioned the weather last year, Ben, in real life Kyalami. What are we expecting this afternoon for the Pro Cup and the Silver Cup?
Well, we'll have to wait and see what happens in the Silvers, but I can tell you that the race is set at 21 degrees, light clouds, but interestingly, the time of the session is something like 4:30 in the morning. So we're going to start in the dusk. No, not the dusk, the dawn.
Oh.
And we're going to have a nice sunrise, which should be quite interesting. Not something you can do in real life, but a quirk of sim racing.
Yeah, you could do it in real life, but I don't think you'd get much love from the drivers, would you, if you said the race is starting at 5 o'clock in the morning?
None of you guys been to Bathurst when they start that 12-hour race? It starts in darkness.
Really?
Oh, that starts at 6 o'clock in the morning, I think.
Ah, okay, well then there we go. We have had it before. The cars are now about to start their formation lap in a couple of moments' time. Then Louis Delatraz is at the top of the championship standings, 59 points, 10 points clear of Marcucci, but he has a 4 points to drop. So in essence, he is 6 points ahead of Marcucci. Ben Barnicoat in third, but he starts down in 16th place on the grid. Ivan Pereiras is technically in with a chance of winning the championship, but he starts 9th on the grid, so it's going to be tough for him to take you through the full grid. And round the formation lap they go. It's time to hand over to the commentators. Ben Constant, jurors, former F1 driver John Watson, and of course the voice of SRO GT Racing, David Addison.
So here we go, one last time in the SRO Esport GT Series, the Pro Championship. So the race underway, and it is Louis Delatraz then that's got the advantage as the cars wriggle their way around this opening lap of the race, but he's coming under attack, isn't he? Because he has got there, queued up behind him, Luigi Di Lorenzo. Delatraz has managed to avoid all the dramas of the first lap, but he's not yet getting away from the opposition, and there, right on his tail, look, as they come up the hill, is Di Lorenzo. So this brings them around Loikop. They're ready to drop downhill through the mineshaft for the first time. In third place is Angus Fender, who, remember, does not score. It's Jordan Pepper fourth. And this leading quartet getting away. We did have a few skirmishes on the opening lap. And right now, although Delatraz leads, he is under big, big pressure. And here, up the inside gate for the race lead is Di Lorenzo. Is he going to be able to do it? They wriggled their way out of the crocodile towards Cheetah, still side by side. Delatraz gets roughed up, runs wide. That's going to cost him the race lead. And it's the Aston ahead as Fender goes round the outside. Delatraz then in danger of losing place after place now, as Jordan Pepper, the South African, eager for a win on a notional home circuit, is right there behind him now. But Delatraz has just hung on to second, but he can ill afford Watty to lose more places.
No, he's struggling badly. I don't know whether it's a lack of tire temperature. It's certainly a lack of grip, and he's been mugged by the Aston Martin. Now around the outside, down at Crowthorne and up the inside into Yuxke, so the McLaren fender has pushed his way through. He got moment. Oh, and tag from behind. Delatraz catches the back of the McLaren, rotates it. Now that may also harm Delatraz big time, because that was a contact that was possibly avoidable. We see Fender has got going again, but he's lost one place, down to fourth. There's the battle. Look, all of a sudden, Bentley has appeared from nowhere.
And have a look at Ben Barnicoat, because he's up into fifth position, if not better. He's got Andy Soucek behind him. Scott Mulvern is next in the queue. That was a bit of a hip and shoulder, as through came Alex Buncombe against Nicholas Hillebrand and elbowed him out of harm's way. That gave Alex Buncombe a place. So the cars accelerate their way uphill. Apologies for missing the start of the race. We had a technical glitch. We're with you. We're running for the hour now. And while we were having our little moment, Ben, Constant Jurors, what was going on which accounted for 1 or 2 at the start of the race? Could you see from in-game?
Yeah, I was watching inside the game. An amazingly poor start from Debbie Perel, Mr. Dave Gaming. I don't know what exactly happened to him, but he was mid-pack, spun around mid-pack before they even got to the kink, let alone the first corner. He spun round, he's been into the pits, back out. Issa Khalifa is also in trouble. Fontana...
So they're the race leaders, accelerating their way up towards the timing line. And as they come through then, it is Luigi De Lorenzo from the front of the grid, now trying to build the lead over Jordan Pepper in second place. Louis Delatraz is third, Michael O'Brien fourth. Now Michael has not had a lot of luck in the championship this year, but he's going really nicely now and is on the back of Delatraz and could well help the man in fifth place, because Ben Barnicoat, who started 16th, is now fifth. Remember that Ben is third in the championship, and a bit of help from that McLaren ahead of him, taking points off Delatraz, would not go amiss here. So Barnicoat, out of nowhere in a sense, John, is looking quite strong now.
I suspect what happened on the opening lap down into the kink into Crowthorne has helped Ben Barnicoat. Remember, in Barcelona, the last round, he was in the middle of the pack once again and got rotated there on the opening lap. So everything's turned around to benefit the young Brit in the McLaren in fifth place. He's just 1.3 seconds behind O'Brien in the sister McLaren. And then Delatraz a little bit further up the road by 0.3 of a second. So that gap, third, fourth, fifth, basically covered by a handkerchief.
So Louis Delatraz here, finding himself on the back foot. He's going to try and score points if he can out of all of this. But he's coming under attack from O'Brien. Ben Barnicoat there in fifth. Andy Soucek sixth. It's Scott Mulvern in seventh. Fabrizio Crestani in eighth. Ivan Pareras in ninth. And then it is Ben Tusting at the moment, rounding out the top 10 as the cars currently work this third lap of the race. But Luigi De Lorenzo now doing his best to try and build the gap over the opposition here. We've already got penalties. I fear Seb Morris has copped a drive through.
Yeah, David, that was for his pit stop. That was for his position at the start of the race. Same with Nicholas Nielsen. They were both out of position at the start. Morris into the pits, but has stayed in the pits as well. So obviously felt no need to continue, sadly.
Okay, race leaders working their way then towards us. There is Ben Barnicoat. He's still got Andy Soucek behind him. This is the turn 2, 3, 4 sequence, isn't it, through Crowthorne, and it's where inevitably there are always incidents. But right now, Ben Barnicoat in the McLaren, Andy Soucek in the Bentley, running together. What this isn't helping necessarily, if Ben is defending, of course, is getting back onto the tail of Michael O'Brien in fourth. And actually, John, over the last lap, Louis Delatraz looking a little bit more secure in that third place.
Yeah, it looks that the opening lap, or maybe the two opening laps for Delatraz were little more than a nightmare, because he was under pressure all the time from De Lorenzo. And Jordan Pepper likewise has squeezed through into second place. So Delatraz beginning to consolidate. He's 1.2 seconds behind Jordan Pepper. Remember, when we were here in beginning of December, Porsche won this race. This is a racetrack probably very much, in a way, favouring Porsche, with a lot of these corners coming up the hill into Leerkop. They're not these high-speed corners, not the aerodynamic effect that maybe you'd get on high-speed corners. It's more the mechanical effect. Down the hill, down the mine shaft, as the cars drop down into the crocodile. This is through mine shaft here. On board with Nicholas Hildebrand going the long way around Crocodile. Can he make it stick? A lot of rubber on the outside, and he's going to be squeezed to the outside. The BMW, I think, has just about managed to hold the Ferrari back. It has.
That's Jody Fannin in the BMW, but he's out a little bit wide. There is Lorenzo Marcucci behind them. Now remember that Marcucci is the man second in the championship, but he's 15th. That means he is a long, long way outside the points, and he's also coming under attack because there is the Ferrari of the recovering, David Perel, in and amongst all of this as well. Out of the kink at turn one, down towards Crowthorne they come, but up front, Di Lorenzo is leading by nearly 2.5 seconds now as there Jody Fannin just hangs on to that 13th place, but he goes wide. Ferrari should get the place here, John.
It should do. There's enough track space to make it through. He did. In fact, good job by Fanning to allow that pass. The third car in that group, we're looking at Marcucci, how he ended up back there. He was on the third row of the grid. He's now all the way down 15th place, the equivalent of being on the 7th row of the grid, and that is a massive disappointment to probably the driver I thought might be the one who would walk away here this afternoon or this evening or this morning or tomorrow, whenever, the champion.
Well, you're right, he's on the back foot right now, and Louis Delatraz, as things have started to settle down, he hasn't been losing any more places. He is still the best placed of those fighting for the championship, so he is still being able to control this. He doesn't need to win the race, he just needs to outscore the rest of them. If he is third, he will bag 70 points. If Ben Barnicoat is fifth as his nearest opposition, Ben will bag 53. So it's still looking as though Louis Delatraz is on target for the title, but there's a long way to go. Still 51 minutes and change on the clock as we look there at David Perel coming under attack from Matt Samuel as they head down towards the Crocodile.
Nobody ahead of Delatraz is going to beat him in the championship. So Delatraz is in effect in control, albeit in third place. So all he has to do is ensure that he A, doesn't make a mistake, or B, put himself in a position where another car could have collision, take him out. So he's got that little bit of a gap. It's now 2.3 seconds between second and third place. But Mike O'Brien is, just a second behind the third place Porsche. Looking at board, Scott Malvern in the Bentley, up through the sweeps of Yuxke, coming up into Barbecue. I've had a lot of work in the steering wheel from the Bentley driver. Normally, I wouldn't have expected that to be the case, but maybe different styles, different car setups, different driver preferences.
But Scott Malvern doing a good job here, isn't he? Running in 7th place. Now, Scott has had a 7th as his best of the season. Came out of winning the British Formula 4 Championship many, many years ago through GT4 into GT3. There is David Perel. He's on the attack. He's going for 14th against Lorenzo Marcucci. Local time within the game is 5:15. Question for Ben here is, what does the game do, Ben, to change as the time of day changes here? As we get closer to 6:15, for example, at the race end, how will the game take that into account? Is it just the light or the temperature as well? What does it do?
As in real life, the light will be better, the track temperature will start to rise, we'll get some sunlight on the track as well, so the group might be better, but with a lack of tyre by the end of the race. It could be quite interesting to see how these cars react to that. I don't know what actually would be the effect in real life, John Watson, is to kind of starting so early with full track and then running later with a hotter track but tyre.
Well, I don't think it's going to get hot at this time of morning. It'll get warmer. In fact, we could just see the sun rising as the cars came through Leocop. So it is early in the morning, 5:15. Probably the track temperature will be around the low 20s, maybe high teens. Yeah. It's not going to be a factor for this race. It may be a factor for the Silver Cup, but we are anticipating that might be a race where rain comes into play.
Yes, the forecast is for rain, isn't it, for later in the day here at Kyalami. There was drama in the background we saw a moment or two ago coming through Crocodile and Cheetah, which accounted for, amongst others, by the look of it, the recovering Angus Fender. Now remember that he had qualified fourth, got tangled up early in the race, was trying to recover and has fallen a long way back. Andy Soucek is ahead now of Ben Barnicoat, so that's even worse news for Ben in the championship. Not only are fewer drivers getting ahead of Delatraz, but he has now lost a place and therefore 2 more points because Andy Soucek is up and past him. Andy, who is the subject of the next big interview in the pit lane, the SRO podcast coming out next week, and the former Formula 3 champion, Spanish Formula 3 champion, hangs on to a newly won 5th place as he now plunges downhill out of Loicop.
Yeah, down the hill, down through the mine shaft. So Ben Barnicoat will have been disappointed to have lost that place, but Andy Soucek, he does have the drive-through, but that's something will come a little bit, well, it might come sooner than later, in fairness. So that will be some kind of, if you want to call it, relief for the British driver in the McLaren, the number 2, the turquoise and black. Now, the McLarens, certainly in the Silver Cup, absolutely clobbered with ballast for the success that they had, top 4 positions there. But here, not so penalised, and leading McLaren currently, Mike O'Brien in 4th place.
Now, that drive-through for Andy Soucek is because of causing a collision on the opening lap with Lorenzo Marcucci. So we were wondering why Marcucci was so far down the order, having, of course, been fighting for the championship. Well, Andy Soucek, it is deemed, has a case to answer here. Richard Norbury, the steward, Peter Roberts, the race director, they have had a look at it and feel that Andy Soucek is the man responsible, so a drive-through he will get. A quick word about our 2 officials here. Both Peter Roberts and Richard Norbury are part of the official team for the Porsche Super Cup, which kicks off in the not too distant in Austria. So at the end of the silver race, they've got 1 hour to look at any evidence that they need to. Then they have to set off and drive to Austria to make sure that they are there in time to go through all the local regulations due to COVID-19. And then tomorrow, if they need to, they'll carry on reviewing any evidence. So it'll be very much a provisional result tonight, an official one tomorrow once they've arrived in Austria.
David, am I missing something, or where has Angus Fender gone?
He was, remember, tagged into a spin early on, and then we saw him tagged again a couple of laps ago coming out of the Crocodile. That was the one I was just mentioning, and that dropped him way down the order.
I had a picture of dropout, so I missed maybe that piece of the action. That's why I'm looking for him.
Yeah, no, he's fallen a long way down. Yes, ma'am, sorry.
About 2 laps down. He must have had a long old pit stop to fix the car and decided rather than retiring, he'd just carry on and get the car fixed and enjoy being part of this because he has the pace. Sadly, 2 laps down from the nearest challenger, he's sitting 19th position.
We've also got, I don't think it's relevant anymore because he's still in the pit lane anyway, but Seb Morris was being given a 30-second stop and go for causing a collision with David Perel. Now that, and I suspect, is the answer to why David Perel had his spin at the kink.
It makes sense because the penalty came straight at the beginning of the race, but he'd already had a drive-through penalty from the automatic system dictating where he wasn't. He was in the wrong place at the start, and the game gives you a box to sit in. You must sit in that box. If you're outside of that box, then you're given an automatic drive-through penalty. So Seb Morris already had that even before he then went into the pits, retired, and now has another 30-second penalty.
All of which will be of academic interest. But Andy Soucek, of course, now the cork in the bottle for Ben Barnicoat and Scott Mulvin, has got to serve this drive-through. But while he is out on track, he's getting in Ben Barnicoat's way, preventing Ben from getting any closer to the top 3. This is Scott Mulvin's view, 7th, but it's going to become 6th once the leading Bentley serves the drive-through penalty. But of course, up front, ahead of them all, Luigi Di Lorenzo looking for the best result of the season. It was a 19th, but he's had a really good run here to get himself up the order. He came here 5th in the championship as well, so let's see what he can do in order to score a maiden victory of the season as the cars now turn their way once again out of Crocodile.
Just the cars are maintaining because Delatraz has fallen back to 5.5 seconds behind second place Jordan Pepper. He is in effect holding up Mike O'Brien in the lead McLaren. And those Soucek, and who's going to make that drive-through penalty, Ben Barnicoat, who's in the hunt for the championship. So has Delatraz got a problem? Is it something has arisen we're not aware of? Certainly from the minute the lights went out, that Porsche has not looked to be the car that we saw in previous rounds.
I just wonder, though, given Delatraz, we know he's a canny driver, he's a thinking driver, whether he's doing just enough. He's keeping out of trouble. He's banking points. He knows who is ahead. He knows where his championship rivals are. As you said a few laps back, John, he can just control it from where he is. The Porsche may not look that quick, but don't forget, of course, also, it is having to lug around an extra 25 kilos, given the success we had in Barcelona.
Well, the 25 kilos certainly is a penalty, particularly here where you've got a fair amount of rise and fall. Also, remember, this racetrack is not at sea level. It's actually at 5,029 feet above sea level. So all the cars are struggling, but those that are, let's say, non-turboed, the Porsche is a non-turboed car. Probably it will suffer that little bit more because cars can generate the additional, because that's what turbo induction So maybe that's a function of those that are naturally aspirated rather than those that are turboed. The McLaren there behind, directly behind Michael Brown, V8 twin turbo.
Now, we have lost Andy Soucek. You look at the graphic, you'll see that he has been excluded from the race for not serving the penalty. So that's Andy Soucek gone, having been running in a pretty impressive 5th place. Opens the door, of course, now for Ben Barnicoat to thunder on in pursuit of Michael O'Brien, who you're riding with right now. This is coming out of Ingwe, and Michael O'Brien is on the hunt, isn't he, to try and close up onto the back here of Louis Delatraz as they come over the line. If O'Brien can take more points away from Delatraz, if he can force Delatraz nearer to Ben Barnicoat, it's all helping his stablemate, Michael O'Brien, running in the Balfe Motorsport colours against the 2Cs colours of Ben Barnicoat, but they are McLaren representatives nonetheless.
I think what you've just said, David, is regarding Delatraz is probably because Delatraz has proven to me to be a smart and canny race driver. He knows what he has. If he has got a problem, or just simply the additional balance, not just balancing the setup, the Porsche as he would like it. Well, if he can maintain 3rd place, he's going to walk away the champion. So all he is doing, as you pointed out, is not letting Mike O'Brien get too close. Gap there between 3rd and 4th places as they come down through the S's. Then the hill, the climb, and that's a much steeper incline. And we're seeing here on screen. So you get to the top of the hill, you've got to get on the brakes, slow the car down, 2-part corner, Leerkop, and then the run down the hill. And that's quite a steep decline.
Now, the other driver, of course, that came here thinking championship, admittedly the outsider, Ivan Pereiras, he's down in 9th. And the Audi's heavier than the Porsche. We're talking about the Porsche with 25 kilos, Audi 27. Because of the combined top 3 placings that they got in the Barcelona race. So the Audi's struggling, as in fact they did in real life here, John, last year for the IGTC 9R race.
Yeah, I mean, it's Porsche in the end dominated that race. I mean, Weather dominated the race in total, but nonetheless, it was the Porsche that came through this particular car. And again, it's doing the do. It hasn't got the out time of the Aston Martin that's leading, or the Bentley that's in 2nd place. Delatraz is now a further 6.6 seconds behind 2nd place Jordan Pepper, and he's 1.1 seconds. He's actually stretched the gap fractionally between himself and O'Brien in the McLaren in 4th place.
Now, a question for Ben Constanduras this about Ben Barnicoat, if Ben can go in the game and have a look. Now that there's no longer the Soucek Bentley ahead of him, can Ben Barnicoat's lap times, Ben C, suggest that Ben B can catch up with O'Brien and Delatraz ahead of him?
Yes, he's got about a gap of 3 seconds to Michael O'Brien, greatly running wet penalty in most of the starts of the races that we've had so far, but always had the pace and always up front.
Yeah.
Barnicoat's matching O'Brien, he's also matching Louis Delatraz, but Luigi Di Lorenzo and Jordan Pepper are miles ahead in terms of pace per lap than the rest of the field. Di Lorenzo always in the 41s, Jordan Pepper faster on the last lap, but on the previous one to that, he was slightly slower and just in the 42s. So if you can get your lap times in the 41s, you're laughing. And at the moment, there's only one man doing that, and that's our leader.
Okay, thanks, Ben. Another Ben Tusting here. He's crawling all over the back of Fabrizio Crestani. So again, Ben Tusting, historic single-seater racer turned GT racer, has been impressive over the course of this championship. 6th place, his best result. Fabrizio Crestani started the series with pole at Silverstone, but the results have not gone his way, and he's in danger of losing another place here. John Tusting is all over the back of the number 27 McLaren.
Certainly is, coming out of turn 16 on to the relatively short pit straight through the kink and then all the way downhill into Crowthorne. A big break as you come out of the kink. Really, you're only exiting the kink before you hit the brakes. There you can see the markers on the right hand side. You've got to be neat and tidy here, because if you overrun on the exit of Crowthorne, then this section of the circuit up through Yuxke and into Barbecue, you open yourself up to a challenge. And right now Tusting is trying all he can to make Crestoni's life particularly difficult, but not Jack this time, it's going to be David. What is curious to me is 4 McLarens in the top 8 in fact it is right now. But unfortunately for them, the lead one is Mike O'Brien, who's not really in contention. It's Ben Barnicoat, and Barnicoat needs to go from 5th to 1st to give himself any chance at all of winning this race at the championship as well.
He does indeed. I mean, if he gets close enough to Michael O'Brien, would he let him go, thinking McLaren driver for the championship? Not sure. But either way, they are still, as you rightly make the point, behind Delatraz. So as long as Louis stays ahead of Ben Barnicoat and Lorenzo Marcucci and Ivan Pereira, it is mission accomplished. But this is Ben Tusting, who is still on the back of Crestani, 7th and 8th, as they plunge their way downhill. The sparks fly from Crestani's McLaren, and now he has to set the car up out of mineshaft down towards the Crocodile.
Yeah, and this is where Tusting, one lap ago, got himself less in the position he would like to be. It's through these sequence of corners. This is through Cheetah, the right-hander that leads down all of a sudden into the very tight. And Ingwe, unusual name for a corner, but that's the choice of the circuit owners. See how much closer he is to the back of Crestoni, but really can't translate it. He's got the headlights, the side light of headlights certainly, and everybody mandatorily, because this race started as the light was rising, so running with headlights on.
So out of the Crowthorne left-hander, yes, Ingwe is leopard, I think, from memory, in Afrikaans, hence its name. You've got all the animals, crocodile, cheetah, leopard at the end of the lap. Right now, up through the Yuki sweep and heading towards barbecue. Look back from Crestani's car, and there now on the run towards sunset is Ben Tusting behind. In 9th place, you can just see it in the background, is the Audi, the leading Audi of Ivan Pereiras, who came here 4th in the championship, and Alex Buncombe now in 10th place. The second of the Bentleys in this, but it's Scott Mulvern upholding Bentley Honour, running in 6th. And Crestani here, dare one suggest, John, is the cork in the bottle. Tusting is a bit stuck.
Tusting is stuck, but as we historically, this is a toughie. He's going to try and make the move. Well, he's going to be very brave to do that, because he would certainly be on-sided on the way up until Learcop tries to push the nose of his McLaren up the inside of Crestani's McLaren, but easily defended. Then the run back down this hill, and this is the nature of this circuit. There's no really easy or obvious place where you can make an attack that isn't easily or obviously defended.
And look at the way that Pereiras and indeed Alex Buncombe in 10th place are closing on the McLarens. So Ben Tusting definitely being held up by Crestani as they come now down towards Ingwe. This is turn 16. It's a sharp corner. It brings you on to the pit straight, which is a long, long, long run all the way down through the kink, down towards Crowthorne. Now up front, Luigi Di Lorenzo still leads the way, 1.3 seconds to the good. I'm telling you a lie when I say that Scott Mulvern is upholding Bentley Honour, because Jordan Pepper, forgive me, is second, of course. He's a Bentley driver. He's also a South African, so he'd like to win this on virtual home soil. But you're looking at the battle for 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th as the cars here sprint their way once again up through the Yuki sweep and then towards barbecue.
Ben Tusting doing everything he possibly can to find a way, or to force a way past this similar powered car. But just behind that, the Audi, well, the Bentley, in fact, it was Alex Buncombe, I thought, was going to try and make a move on Pereiras as they came up into sunset. And you can see the Bentley actually looks like it's carrying more speed than the Audi. Again, the Audi with that little bit of extra weight on board. But what more can you do? Tusting is over the back of Crestoni like a rash.
Absolutely right. This is Buncombe's view. That's Pereiras ahead of him. The lead gap is just coming down in certain sectors ever so slightly. We'll come to Ben in a moment to look at lap times, just see whether it's on for Jordan Pepper. But Buncombe is all over the back of Pereiras. This is for 9th place. Pereiras having to wave goodbye to any thought of the championship, but he was the very much outside driver for that anyway. But he is certainly under attack, look, as they drop down the hill. The big Bentley, Alex Buncombe then in the second generation Continental GT3 closing. But Ben Tusting, what else can he do other than give a tap in the tail of Crestani to dislodge him? Because he just can't find a way by, John, can he?
No, and again, all you have to do in the case of Crestani is just place your car, try not to overdrive, do not react, do not respond to the pressure that's coming from behind you, because you know that overtaking here is tough. And if anybody's going to make a move, they could put themselves into jeopardy, or if they touch you, they will most certainly get a penalty. So both McLaren drivers aware that it would not be good politics, certainly for the future, to get involved with one another. All it would do is just open up the door and allow Ivan Pereiras and Alex Buncombe to take two. Hope this is not going to be contact. I would love to see an overtake, if it's possible, from Ben Tusting on Fabio Crestani.
Certainly close enough at that moment to come. Now we're riding on board with Buncombe. Ben Constantiouris has been looking at this lead gap. It's coming down, Ben, isn't it? Jordan Pepper is closing. Is that a blip from Di Lorenzo, or is Jordan Pepper going to be able to string together an attack for the race lead, do you think?
That was his fastest lap of the race so far from Jordan Pepper, 41.2, comparing to Lorenzo, who would have seen how fast his compatriot was going and would have been able to pick up the pace and react to that because they have all of that information sector by sector, mini sector by mini sector. So Lorenzo did a 41.3, Pepper did a 41.2, but that compares to Delatraz on a 41.7, O'Brien a 42.1. So nobody's anywhere near those lead two cars.
But the gap for the lead was 1.4 a couple of laps ago. It is now just over a second, so it is closing. Now, John has been making the point, quite rightly, that it's not that easy to overtake around here. Ben Tusting knows all about that. So even if you do get the leaders together, it's going to be hard for Jordan Pepper to find a way through. But what about Tusting on Crestani? Still no change. Crestani defends. This is Tusting's view coming onto the pit straight once more, up through the gears now. Can he make the move, John? Speed building.
Well, I've had a frozen screen once again, so I'm waiting for the picture to return, and just here it comes. So looks down the inside, finally puts himself in position, and one would say, certainly I would, never short of an opinion, that don't laugh at your own jokes, not very funny. Crestani, I think, decided, look, I'm going to give it up. Maybe it's in the interest of the brand McLaren to let Ben Tusting go through. Now let's wait and see whether Tusting has got that additional pace to pull away from Crestani or not. Pass was made. It was a relatively soft overtake, in my opinion. It doesn't matter for Tusting. He's into 7th place, and he can now look forward to chasing down Scott Marvin further 3.3 seconds down the road for that 6th place.
So straight away, that gap is building. Ben Tusting then, who's been a very impressive addition to the GT ranks within this esports Pro Series over these last few months, comes up now through Le Cup. Now this is the lead battle. It is developing because it is just a gnat over 1 second between the Aston Martin and the Bentley. Good British brands here. Italian driver leads South African. Jordan Pepper, who was a one-make Volkswagen champion in his home country, came to Europe to win the SRO Cup that supported the DTM and was picked up by the Volkswagen Motorsport Group and ultimately placed within Bentley. Down he comes then towards turn 2. The gap is under a second, John. This is
yes,
on.
It is. You can see it little bit by little small increments, probably every corner around the circuit. You're talking about 100th here, maybe a 10th of a second in any corner. Wow, that would be a massive gain. But the momentum right now has gone to the South African driver. Jordan Pepper has found pace in this middle part of the race. We're just halfway through, another 30 minutes to go, and Pepper has developed a charge. He is closing down. He's not under, well, in fact, it's just extended to just over a second, but it's around that 1 second gap. So between one corner and another, the seesaw between first and second is around a 10th of a second per corner.
Now there is Ben Tusting, 7th, having a really good run in this. He has been in the top 6 this year, but he's had to really battle past Crestani, who now, look, he's falling back into the clutches of Ivan Pereiras, who has got Alex Buncombe right up behind him.
Yep, Alex Buncombe caught up to the back of the Audi pretty quickly, but again, usual story, you catch, but where are you going to make that pass? So that group of cars, Buncombe in 10th place, got Hildebrand in the Ferrari, David Perel in the Ferrari, Fruminelli in the Ferrari, 3 Ferraris, 11th through 13th.
So David Perel, 12th, recovering after his dramas on the opening lap. We'll try and catch up with that in due course, as this is the view of the race leader, Luigi Di Lorenzo, then now onto the pit straight, rattles up onto the curb, up through the gears. You can see the display, you can see his view, clear road ahead of him. Bentley right behind him. The gap is 0.719 of a second. It's less than ever now for the race leaders. Down towards turn 2, into Crowthorne goes the leader. But Jordan Pepper can't think about a dive bomb there. You'll catch a glimpse, look in the screen there, which acts as the mirror. So this is the run up through the Jutski sweep, John, heading to barbecue.
Yeah, so slow left-hand corner onto one of the quicker parts of the racetrack. Then you go into that lovely, fast right-hander at Sunset. Still a great corner after all these years. Who wrote that song? Anyway, leader, Lorenzo, through Aston Martin, just about perfectly balanced. But you can see in the mirror, just alongside his right hand, how close Jordan Pepper's Bentley is closing. The gap down to 6/10 of a second. and we're only halfway around the 19th lap.
De Lorenzo hustling on now, this steep climb up the hill and the double apex left at the top, John.
Yeah, so up the highest part of this racetrack, the Kyalami circuit, all of 5,024 feet. Then you drop down, flat out, third gear, fourth gear, just probably grab fifth gear before you go through the man. There it is, through the man shaft. Then you've got to get back to the left-hand side of the circuit, hard on the brakes, because you're going to come into the crocodile. Watch the curb on the outside. A lot of drivers will run very wide. They're trying to maintain exit speed. Then another big break into Cheetah, tighter of the two corners. Again, a lot of use of the curb on the exit. Then anyway, get your car in, get the power on progressively. Don't slam it open. You don't want to break traction. As we go back to this battle from 11th through 13th, 3 Ferraris chasing the Bentley.
Chasing and closing, are they not? Because there, Nicholas Hillebrand taking South African, another local hero, David Perel with him for good company. They're closing on the back of Bentley number 8. The lead gap, though, is half a second. It is coming down and down and down. Buncombe is under huge attack, isn't he? Because the 711 Ferrari is open for business, that is for sure. Hillebrand right there on the back of the Bentley as they come over the line now. Another lap goes in the book, and can Hillebrand make the move heading down towards turn 2 here? Through the kink, pulls to the inside line. He's going to brake late. He'll go through, gets the job done, but does he go out wide? Yes, he does. Alex Buncombe tries to get the undercut. They just run, but the Ferrari stays ahead.
Again, and take for Hildebrand. Alex Buncombe stayed well to the right-hand side of the track. Maybe he thought he could make the undercut coming up through Yuxke. Well, what is interesting is Alex Buncombe a few laps ago was right on the rear wing of Ivan Pereiras for that 9th place battle. Now, in the last 2 or 3 laps, his lap time has fallen away because the first of that train of 3 Ferraris has made its way past Alex Buncombe. So what the problem is, well, maybe we'll find out when this race concludes. 26 minutes of it remaining.
And as far as the leaders are concerned, the gap is less than ever once again, 0.477 of a second. It certainly looks, Ben Constanduras, as though in this second half of the race, Jordan Pepper has found something. Or is it that De Lorenzo is losing pace?
The pace is starting to slightly slow. We're now in the 141.6s from De Lorenzo. He was much faster than that before. And Pepper is being able to be just slightly more consistent from where he was before. They match each other that last time through, as Buncombe now loses another place to the Ferrari contact. Oh, messy.
It was messy, John, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult to pass because you've got to be more than square alongside the car. Buncombe didn't want to give it up. Perel felt he had done enough. It was difficult to see from this particular angle, but both drivers needed to work together. There's no point trying to force an issue where the immovable object is alongside you.
So Alex Buncombe drops down to 12th. David Perel still trying to work his way forward after his dramas on the opening lap. Number 99, Ben Barnicoat, you'll notice, is up into 4th place at the expense of Michael O'Brien. We didn't see the change, whether that was a good McLaren decision or whether it was Ben's pace. Either way, it brings him closer to Louis Delatraz in terms of race position. He's still got a huge gap to make up of over 4 seconds, and even if he moves ahead of him by 1 place, it's still not really going to be enough.
No, unfortunately not. I mean, for Ben Barnicoat, it's been a sort of a season, a 5-race season of what ifs and or buts. Certainly the damage was done to his championship challenge with that outcome in Barcelona 3 weeks ago.
Absolutely, and Silverstone looked good, didn't it, until he and Crestani tangled early on, and he had to make a good recovery, but lost some points there. So Ben Barnicoat has, as you say, had a snakes and ladders, up and down type of season, but he has been a race winner. He and Louis Delatraz argued over the Formula Renault NEC title many moons ago, and it was Ben that took that. But it looks like Louis Delatraz is going to be victorious as far as the championship is concerned, unless there is a drama. Now, this is the replay of the start, which we can now bring you. So let's try and piece it all together. You see Louis Delatraz then in the Porsche on pole position with alongside him Luigi Di Lorenzo. As I say, the grid, actually, the 2 sides reverse from what we had for the IGTC round, the Kyalami 9-hour last time. So Delatraz arguably on the worst side of the grid. So the cars make their way up towards the timing line. The indication given to get the race underway, and Louis Delatraz storms away, but it was behind him where we had dramas on the way down towards turn 1. You see Jordan Pepper there trying to find a way through the traffic as well to get up past Angus Fender. Delatraz with about 2 lengths of an advantage going down towards turn 2. And then behind, Pereiras got a little tap from Ben Tusting, and that forced him out wide. And that was Marcucci, look, being turned around in the pack. Andy Soucek named as the guilty party.
Yeah, that really spoiled another championship potential. Marcucci, I thought, was the one driver that could, if he got himself into position. As we look, this is the lead battle. All of a sudden, Jordan Pepper thinks, well, I'll have a little looked up the inside. Let's make my little mate here, De Lorenzi, uncomfortable. And that's what, by putting the car where he did, suddenly you're going to force De Lorenzi to start driving, looking in his mirrors, or in some cases, they've got a little video screen in the car, just to realise that while we've got 20 minutes or 23 minutes of this race remaining, Gaston's going to take the win.
Well, Jordan Pepper won the opening race at Silverstone, if you recall, and could be the first double winner then of the championship. Let's see as he comes then now up towards the timing line. De Lorenzo still has the advantage, but it was 4/10 last time. They'll break the beam now, and it's down to 3/10. De Lorenzo versus Pepper then as they head towards the kink. Speed still building down towards turn 2. The grunt and go of that Bentley, and then some late braking, getting Jordan Pepper even closer to the race leader, John.
David, remember, race was a 9-hour endurance race, and you spotted that in the pit stops, in the round, one of the early rounds of pit stops, that Bentley were able to double stint a set of tyres. That tells me that Bentley is very gentle on his tyres here in Kyalami, and I wonder, is that what we're now seeing, the benefit that Jordan Pepper's, enjoying, simply being able to run down the race leader, put himself to be within, 3-4 tenths of a second, depending on which part of the racetrack they're on. Certainly Jordan Pepper is the more threatening of the two drivers to take the race victory, but not obviously going to take the championship victory.
Indeed, he came here 6th in the title race, but can he bookend the season with a win at Silverstone, a win at Kyalami, and indeed, can he win on, as I keep saying, virtual home soil here? The South African driver right on the back of the Aston Martin, Luigi De Lorenzo, then leads the way, 0.404 of a second at the last sector point, and down the hill they plunge, heading towards Mineshaft. Now, is Jordan Pepper prepared to sit there, or is he going to be darting about at the end of this next run to try to unsettle De Lorenzo, to force a mistake out of him? Because right now De Lorenzo is doing a good job. He's maintaining track position.
He is, but what's noticeable just coming down through Mineshaft into Cheadle was how much less racetrack Jordan Pepper was using, indicating that he has probably got a lot more on hand. But of course the problem is he's in that familiar situation. You catch, but how do you find a way around it? Gap as they come across the line, well, it's 5/10 of a second. It's almost irrelevant because he can just run that gap down in the space of between the kink and coming into Crowthorne.
David,
yes, Ben, sorry.
Watty makes a very good point about tyres. As you well know, there's a huge amount of work done between Assetto Corsa Competizione and Pirelli. And Pirelli just kind of opened their data book for Assetto Corsa to make sure that the tyre model in this game is as close to real life as possible. It's a bone of contention in sim racing as to whether the tyre models in different platforms are good or bad. And you can't doubt that this is realistic, because the amount of data that Pirelli opened their books up and gave us at a Corsa gives real life results. So if the Bentley was good in Kyalami on similar track conditions, then it should be good today in this race.
Well, we're certainly seeing it. Thanks, Ben. Also, are we seeing Ben Barnicoat catching Louis Delatraz? I fear the answer is no. And there, look, Jordan Pepper tries to force a mistake out of De Lorenzo as they went through Lloyd Kopp. Now that shows intent, John, doesn't it? That says to De Lorenzo, I am here. I am going to give you a hard time for the next 20 minutes.
Again, just watching coming down into Crocodile. Now the Bentley gets up alongside, and there's Jordan Pepper who loses out. I thought it might have been De Lorenzo in the Aston Martin, but it was actually Pepper. So all that good yards that he'd been making up over the last 5 or 8 laps suddenly goes down the inside, and normally it would be the car on the outside, the Aston Martin, that would be the loser. This time it's Jordan Pepper. Unexpected. I mean, a move that never was going to be realistically achievable, but just adding to the pressure of the race leader, who's now got a comfortable gap of 5.2 seconds. Where did you hear that one before? Comfortable gap of 5.2 seconds.
Well, Jordan Pepper, that was a salt and pepper, wasn't it? That was a bold old effort, but it
was certainly a salt.
Absolutely. The bite a bit and all of that, because Jordan made the effort and it didn't work, and so he's the one that comes off worst. However, he's kept second place. Delatraz hasn't even got close to him. That shows you how far ahead the top two were. But that, given that he was losing time against the Bentley, is a massive get-out-of-jail free card for Luigi Di Lorenzo, because he's away and gone. He's 5.5 seconds clear now.
Yeah, I mean, he'll be thinking, well, what was that all about? The thing was, I noticed every lap for the last 3 laps how much more racetrack the Aston needed to use, whereas the Bentley was just tippy-toeing around, using little more than half the racetrack coming through Mineshaft down into Crocodile.
Now this is Nicholas Hillebrand, who's in the points. He's running in 10th place. He's had a 9th as his best out of the championship, and he could get another one here because he's crawling all over the back of Ivan Pereiras.
So the Audi, maybe the ballast again, you can see just how much coming out of Sunset, Clubhouse, how much more racetrack the Audi having to use compared to the chasing Hildebrand and the Ferrari. So it's just that the particular car, the setup or the usage of the tire, the Ferrari up into Learcop, just how it can run down the Audi at will. Now, out of this double right, a left-hander at Learcop, down the hill to the scene of the incident 1 lap ago when the Aston got tagged by the Bentley. Will Hildebrand try and do something as audacious in the Ferrari? Isn't close enough, but look, he's lost it himself. He's done almost, he didn't touch the Audi, the back, and the pendulum effect to go. Challenge gone, and he will maybe find himself being challenged by Alex Buncombe, who's a further 5 seconds behind. In fact, Buncombe just got past him.
He has. So Hillebrand has a big lose, and up front, Luigi Di Lorenzo leads. The gap is coming down. Jordan Pepper is on the hunt, but he's going to run out of time, I fear, here. We've had 4 races. We've had 4 different winning drivers, 4 different winning brands as well. And Luigi Di Lorenzo for Aston Martin would be a 5th different driver, 5th different brand, just to show how open the Pro Series has been. Jordan Pepper, having brought the gap down by a Nat semi-crotchet, has now lost out again because it just nudged the other side of 5 seconds. Delatraz third, ticking off the laps, ticking off the corners, banking the points for 3rd place, although Ben Barnicoat is a little nearer. There in 9th is Ivan Pereiras, and that Audi all of a sudden looks a little bit at sea on that line. You've got further up the road Scott Mulvan's Bentley coming under attack from Ben Tustings. So the 2 British drivers here separated by just over a second, and Tustings had a really good run in this race.
I think he's had a pretty good season in general, and he's doing a great job here trying to chase down 6th place Scott Mulvan. The gap, well, it was 1 second at the last timing sector, so coming down the mineshaft through the little kink before you get into Crocodile, and then watch again just to see how much usage different car driver packages are making of the racetrack. McLaren, Bentley, probably not an awful lot in terms of how the cars respond. It's just really the nut behind the wheel that's going to get the job done between these 2.
Well, the gap's down, and what about the gap between the leaders? The gap between the leaders is coming down as well. This is the replay of Nicholas Hillebrand having a go against Pereiras, looking down from the helicam. Talk us through this, John.
Well, I said there's no way he's going to make a move, and then all of a sudden, where is it? Oh, look, he just died in a plunge. I don't know why he thought he could get away with it. He was just so far behind, there was no way. And if he got to the apex, well, he was going to find a McLaren precisely in that part of the racetrack. This battle here going on, Tusting running behind, Scott Marvin, that's closed down, 4/10 of a second.
So there could well be a change. Look, the McLaren almost hidden by the big Bentley and the Team Parker Racing colours. Stuart Parker's eponymous team. Out through Sunset they go. That's turn 6 up to Clubhouse at turn 7, this narrow section. And further up the road, the lead gap 4.7 seconds. Pepper is on the attack again, but he's not bringing it down quickly enough because we've only got 14 minutes to go.
I wonder what Jordan Pepper is saying under his balaclava, under his helmet. He had an opportunity. He could have won this race. Nothing wrong with trying, but you don't want to fail in the course of it.
But he had 20 minutes, didn't he, just about, still to attack. And, well, maybe we'll get the chance to talk post-race and you'll find out.
He certainly, in my opinion, at the phase that he made his overtaking manoeuvre, here, coming into Crocodile, he was a little bit maybe ambitious. Certainly the outcome proved that to be the case. But as you point out, David, he had 20 minutes. He could have still applied the pressure and still could have forced an issue at another one of the 16 corners around the circuit.
Now, all that said, Ben Constantiouris, that lead gap is down, isn't it? It's just over 4 seconds, and it was 5.5, 2 laps back after the spin. So the gap is coming down. What we don't know, I suppose, is whether this is Di Lorenzo driving within himself. But you might be able to tell us that Jordan Pepper is lighting up the timing screens in a moment when we've just had a look at Tusting, not being able to get past Scott Malvern in the Bentley. So, yes, Jordan Pepper and his lap times, what's he up to?
Pepper's being as good as he ever was, so 41.2 that last time through. This lap is going to be a bad one. He's made a little mistake, so he's 0.3 down on this one. But he's still over half a second faster than Di Lorenzo. He needs a bit more race to get back onto his tail. But if Di Lorenzo's car keeps degrading those tyres more and more, we have seen tyres drop kind of off a cliff at the end of some of these races so far. So if that does happen in this one, there is still a chance for Pepper, but this particular lap is not good.
Okay. And Jordan Pepper also has been given a warning for causing a collision which caused himself to spin. Same true for Nicholas Hillebrand, a warning by Richard Norbury, the championship steward.
One factor that we haven't talked about, and that happened in Barcelona, I think it was Alex Buncombe when he came across the line, he was out of fuel. I hope, when we look at it again, never, ever, ever was that going to be an overtake, a feasible over. You might want to put the driver you're pressuring under even more pressure, but he put himself in a position where there was going to be a collision, and the outcome was that Jordan Pepper, who could have gone on to win this race, is probably going to go on to take second place.
Gap's down 3.9 seconds, but you're right, yes, fuel was an issue at the Barcelona race. Is it going to be an issue here? Let's see. You've got certainly a number of drivers really pushing, and Jordan Pepper is one of those that is really on the attack because he's got the gap down to 3.9 seconds. So even though we were fearing that last lap wasn't going to be a good one, he still managed to bring the gap down. So if he doesn't make mistakes, Jordan's got the pace here. Delatraz still third, champion-elect. Ben Barnicoat fourth, Michael O'Brien fifth. And for Michael, that is going to end the season with a best finish. Malvern sixth, Tusting seventh. You're looking at them both. Crestani is eighth, Pereiras ninth, Alex Buncombe is in 10th spot.
So Ben Tusting using bits of the racetrack, trying to find grip, trying to find really the momentum of all these, what I would call medium at best speed corners. This Sunset, the quickest actual corner on the racetrack. So the gap between the Bentley and McLaren just ebbing backwards and forwards. There's no point running directly under the rear wing of a car you're following because that's going to dictate your pace. So by dropping back that little bit more, Ben Tusting will hope to get a run, get a charge back up to the tail of Scott Malvern's Bentley, up the hill, up into Leerkop. And this double left-hander slowish in, then you just generally pick up the throttle all the way through. Remember, there's a second part. There it is. We're now in the second part. Bentley takes a different line to the McLaren. McLaren hoping to pick up a little more speed with that different exit down the hill into Crocodile. And the gap's more or less constant.
As far as the race leaders are concerned, the gap is being chipped away rather than tumbling, but it is coming down 3.8 seconds. But with now just over 10 minutes on the clock, Luigi Di Lorenzo is going to have to do something pretty cataclysmic to lose the race, and Louis Delatraz likewise for the championship now. It may not have been the most exciting drive of Louis' life, but he's done what was required going into this final sixth of it, the last 10 minutes, because he's there ready to win the championship. You see Lorenzo Marcucci going through down in 13th place, and that's JD Fannin, the quick Brit, in the big Valkenhorst BMW in 14th place. JD, who's been busy with lots of esports activity over these lockdown months and coming up towards the line, running in 14th position here.
Yeah, he's running just a couple of seconds behind one of the potential champions, but Marcucci obviously in that opening phase and into Crowthorne got tagged, and that took any opportunity away. So purely academically, the BMW doing its best in 14th place. So clearly the circuit suits some brands more than others, and a lot of that is to do with the degree of elevation that we have here at Kyalami. The fact that the circuit itself has got elevation, but 5,000 feet above sea level will affect the various engine configurations slightly differently.
Well, there's the man of the moment. That is Luigi Di Lorenzo bouncing off the curb. Oh, well, that, if he repeats it, John, is just going to take time out of that gap, and that's going to give renewed hope, isn't it, to Jordan Pepper, seeing that the Aston Martin might be vulnerable after all.
Yeah, and he picked up a little bit of dirt on the left rear of the Aston Martin. I don't know that he did that. Maybe a concentration, maybe, I don't know, I can't imagine. Maybe he'll we speak to him after the race. Little heart in the mouth, for the less for the Italian and for the Aston Martin brand.
But between timing points, the gap went from 3.9 to 2.8. So suddenly Jordan Pepper thinks, you know, I might have a chance here. He's throwing everything at it, and Di Lorenzo almost threw it off. Now this is for sixth. It's Malvern versus Tusting. The McLaren now goes to the inside line down to turn 2. He should get the job done, but no, Scott Malvern hangs on the outside line. He's going to run out of road, is he not? No, he's just got it within the curvings, and Scott Malvern powers uphill. Bentley stays ahead of McLaren. Good, clean racing, John.
Yeah, but I thought Ben had done enough coming into Crowthorne. I thought he just had to plant the McLaren on the apex and then make the Bentley stop, because it was going to have to go the very long way around. And I think he actually had that position. He actually had taken 6th place for about half a second, and then he allowed Scott Malvern to come back, and the big Bentley, he's a bit like a Tonka toy at times. It's that large, so maybe he felt somewhat intimidated.
Remember, it's a little bit different in the virtual to the real world, especially in this particular game. It has a fantastic radar system that tells you exactly where the car is that you're trying to overtake. So you've got awareness of exactly how far alongside that car is, if he's only half a car length or a full car length, how far away in terms of distance, if he's right on the apex or closer to you. So you know exactly where he is. It's not like in a real world car where you're kind of sometimes a little bit restricted with your vision. And I think Scott, being, as we know, a very, very polite and kind man, perhaps using that data gave the other car a little bit too much room, whereas we didn't see that with Lorenzo and Pepper earlier on.
Well, certainly the Bentley, I thought the McLaren had done enough. If I had been driving the McLaren, I would have made sure no way the Bentley was coming back, whether it's sim racing or real racing. That is racing at the end of the day. I mean, obviously there's certain differences between sim and real-time racing, but one lap ago, this McLaren was side by side, door handle to door handle, there at that apex. And for me, that was a pass that should have been completed.
Now Jordan Pepper further up the road in the leading Bentley, 2.5 seconds off the back of Di Lorenzo. This is Alex Buncombe against Pereiras. He's on the outside line down into Crowthorne, and that is Nicholas Hillebrand in the Ferrari trying to squeeze back up the inside. Buncombe's a bit stuck behind the Audi. The Ferrari trying to find a way by as well as they power up the hill now. This, remember, 9th, 10th, 11th. Tremendous battle. 3 different brands all going at it. And Buncombe is trying to attack and defend simultaneously here. He's on the back of Pereiras and fending off the Ferrari.
Well, Nicholas Hillebrand, we saw him dive down the inside, I think into Crocodile again, and actually get the car completely sideways, almost lose position. But this battle going on, Pereiras, Buncombe, this is probably what would be now the closest battle that's taking place, with what, 5.5 minutes or 5 minutes and 54 seconds to go.
But still that leading gap I'm looking at, because it's down to 2.3 now. Di Lorenzo makes another mistake. It could all change again as Buncombe inches up onto the back of Pereiras now and takes that Ferrari with him.
I would be looking in my mirror a lot, because having seen Nicholas Hillebrand one time make an error coming down here, down the mine shaft, and it was into Crocodile, he tried to dive up the inside and just got it all wrong. So Buncombe's focused on the back of the Audi. Audi's slow in the middle, and almost to the point of having to make Buncombe back out of it. And that allowed Hillebrand to get his nose up alongside the right rear of the Bentley. So what's wrong with Pereiras? And that almost impacted on Buncombe's position.
So the Audi heavy with 27 extra kilos fending off the Bentley, then Ferrari of Nicholas Hillebrand, and it's David Fuminelli next in the queue. You'll just get a glimpse there as Fuminelli 12th goes past us. 5 minutes and counting. The gap is 2 seconds. Jordan Pepper's going to run out of time, I fear, after that half spin that cost him, 5 seconds or so. On board with Hillebrand now. That's Buncombe ahead. Which way does the Ferrari go? Tries the inside line up towards Barbecue. It's a face full of Bentley.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to happen, but what is clear to me is that Pereiras is certainly not carrying middle corner speed in the Audi, and the Bentley has almost overrun it on 2 occasions. Look at Hillebrand. He is in a hurry, and he's trying to use them. That Bentley goes the long way, but it's the wrong part of the racetrack. Contact allows the Ferrari to get up the inside of the Bentley. Can he maintain it as a bang, shoulder to hip to shoulder, down into the S's? Oh, and the Ferrari again gets absolutely sideways, but this time has managed to consolidate and got the position. Bentley, Ferrari, it's almost like a pinball match.
It is, and it's Ferrari just ahead, but Alex Buncombe trying to open the door again on the inside line. David Fuminelli is up with them as well now. 4 minutes to go. Lead gap just over 1.6 seconds. Plunge downhill again. You're on board with Fuminelli. Wonderful racing we've had. And Nicholas Hildebrand, despite a half spin himself, has gained a position, and now he is closing on Pereiras. Well, he had to go to get past him early on, and that's how he had the half spin. Let's see what happens in these remaining 3.5 minutes as they come now up through Crocodile onto Cheetah. So the Bentley Team M Sport car, Alex Buncombe at the wheel of it now goes into Ingwe. Up towards the end of the lap, the gap still hovering for the leaders at 1.6 seconds. We're going to get certainly 2 more laps out of the race, maybe 3.
And Nicholas Hildebrand, now he's got clear air between himself and Alex Buncombe. The Bentley will be focused on the back of the Audi. He will have seen where the Audi has been slow in this group of what is now 4 cars. He needs to be patient. He doesn't want to throw away all the good work he's done through part of this race. Some of it he got slightly up the inside again, looking, can he force the way past the Audi? Has had to back out of it.
Okay, now we've done 33 laps. We've got 2 3/4 minutes. The gap is now plateauing at 1.6 seconds. Ben Constanduras has spotted Ben Barnicoat's had a moment somewhere. We'll come to that in a moment. Ben looking at Nicholas Hildebrand attacking Pereiras. Let's just see whether he can get the move done as they sprint out of Clubhouse. The answer for the moment is no. Right, quickly, what did Ben Barnicoat do that we didn't see?
Oh, he's up to half a second behind Louis Delatraz, so on course for 3rd position. Just got a little bit wide and dipped himself into the grass, which lost him a 1.5 seconds, and that gap has gone back out again to 1.3. But Barnicoat in the McLaren much faster than Delatraz in the Porsche.
Okay, thank you, Ben. As Jordan Pepper 1.3 seconds back from Di Lorenzo. He's just going to run out of time, but he's throwing everything at it. There is Buncombe ahead of Fuminelli. Nicholas Hildebrand getting past that Bentley, put himself into the points, remember, so it'll be 1 point for the 10th place, but it's worth fighting for. He might get another one. He is glued to the back of Pereiras now as they come towards us. The Ferrari on the attack, John.
Yeah, and the Audi's meandering literally all around the racetrack. And what happened to Hildebrand? Oh, he lost it on the exit, coming out of that penultimate corner, Cheetah. And I don't think he was even trying to make a pass, but just suddenly the back end of this car snapped away, and that has taken the pressure off Alex Buncombe back of the races. He'll be looking what will be, this will be the last lap, virtually the last lap. Can he find a way past Pereiras? He's on the outside, coming down into the Crowthorne. Oh, the Audi, oh, he's tagged it twice. Alex Buncombe, that's bed with no supper tonight for you, my friend.
And it could well be the stewards have a look at that as well, so the story might well rumble on. There is a minute on the clock. The gap between the leaders is 1.2 seconds. Jordan Pepper would like them to try and get over the timing line before the clock hits 0 to give him one more lap and one more chance. They were in the 1:40s in the qualifying session. Now you're looking at Buncombe, but where on the racetrack are the leaders in relation to the clock? Can they squeeze another lap out of this? I would think they probably should be able to, as here is Buncombe making the run out of the S's and then up the hill.
Just
To the line now.
Watching Ben Barnicoat, by the way, in 4th place, 3/4 of a second away from taking away that 3rd place on Delatraz. It's all somewhat academic, other than the pride of each of the drivers who wants to be the final driver on the winner's podium. So that's a race for position on the podium rather than for any championship battle. The battle is Delatraz's with 15 seconds of this race remaining to lose.
Well, we are on the last lap for the race leaders. As Ben said, they've just crossed the line, but the gap is down to 0.6 of a second. Now, this is the replay of what Hildebrand did wrong. Then we need to get back to the top 2 because Hildebrand either got a tap from Buncombe or made a mistake himself, but either way, he bounced off the wall. There is Buncombe, but as I say, they're on the last lap, and the race leaders are covered by 0.693 of a second. Over the line goes Alex Buncombe. He is 9th. David Fuminelli is in 10th position. They go down towards Crowthorne. Louis Delatraz running 3rd. He's heading for the championship. Buncombe has just been given a drive-through penalty. Perhaps not surprising because we were talking about the contact, but we need to keep an eye to the leaders and that gap at the next sector point to see whether it's come down at all. Buncombe versus Fuminelli. It's all a bit academic this anyway because of the drive-through, and Alex lets David Fuminelli go. He knows he's got the penalty. It's going to be given as a time penalty post-race. The lead gap has gone up. So Luigi Di Lorenzo is on target seemingly for the race win. He's on the final lap and the car working its way around the Kyalami circuit for the final time as Alex Buncombe takes to the grass, makes a little mistake and loses even more time. But out of the last corner of Ingwe, the lead gap has come down, but not enough to deny Luigi Di Lorenzo victory in the final round of the SRO Esport GT Series. But there, running third on the road under attack from Ben Barnicoat, Louis Delatraz is set to make history by being the first champion in the SRO Esport GT Series Pro category. Flag at the ready, up through the gears. It's going to be a championship for Louis Delatraz. The Porsche driver takes the title with third place with his nearest rival, Ben Barnicoat. 0.261 of a second behind him. Michael O'Brien gets fifth, his best result of the season. Brilliant job done. And Luigi Di Lorenzo makes it 5 different winning drivers, 5 different winning brands in Pro at the end of an outstanding first championship. Still they come. This is the Hillebrand Ferrari looking at down in third. But to the inside line goes David Perel. One more corner to go. South African driver goes through on the inside line, gets himself up ahead of the American. So to the timing line they come, and David Perel on the line bags 12th place. And that is Isa Al Khalifa, who will be the last one home in 17th spot. Well, in a sense, John, Luigi Di Lorenzo had a charmed life in all of that, didn't he? Because he was able to benefit from Jordan Pepper's self-induced error.
Absolutely, and I mean, he drove a faultless race. He did what he had to do. Got the opportunity early to get past Louis Delatraz, who was on pole position. The Porsche never looked as if it was going to be a race winner here this afternoon. But what Louis Delatraz has done, I pointed out at the start of the season, in winning championships, it's about consistency, finishing, scoring points every single round. And he finished here third today. He's a worthy champion. And of course, I've forgotten the name of the brand he was driving for. They didn't do a bad part of it either, did they?
Those Porsches, you know, there's not much they haven't won, whether it's in real racing and now in virtual racing. Luigi Di Lorenzo takes the race win from Jordan Pepper and Louis Delatraz. Ben Barnicoat fourth, ahead of Michael O'Brien. Good to see him having a good end to his championship. Same two for Scott Malvern, sixth, and Ben Tusting in seventh. Fabrizio Crestani eighth from David Fumanelli, and Lorenzo Marcucci salvaged a point, but it could have been so different but for the contact right at the start of the race. Jody Fannin 11th, the best of the rest, ahead of David Perel, Nicholas Hillebrand, Ivan Pereira ending up 14th ahead of Matt Samuel, the penalised Alex Buncombe, then Isa Al Khalifa ahead of the two wildcards of Alex Fontana and Angus Fender, although they were effectively retirements. The same true, Dan Wells, Roman Monti, Nicholas Nielsen, Seb Morris, and we know Andy Soucek's travails. He was excluded for ignoring the drive-through penalty. But Jack Nicholls, what a way to end a championship drama from start to finish.
Yeah, just a bit. A really, really entertaining race, that one, wasn't it? And congratulations to Louis Delatraz, the champion in the pro class of the SRO Esport GT Series of 2020 after the 5th round here at Kyalami. And I think what he summed it up perfectly, really, as he always does. But points in every single round is mightily impressive. And even if you think back to Silverstone, I think, which was his worst result at the start of the campaign, he was on for a better result until he ended up in a bit of a collision and only finished, I think it was 8th or something. So he has been a front runner the whole way through the series, and there's certainly no more a deserving victor than that. Marcucci, Barnicoat, Pereira, I guess, sort of stories of what could have been for them. And I think the same is true, for example, of Jordan Pepper. We saw him leading championships early on. I think going to the Nürburgring, he was in front. Finished second again here. But all these drivers had the pace. They did not have the results that Delatraz had.
Well, yeah, I mean, in fairness, you did for Jordan Pepper because you put him on pole position or at the front of the grid at the Nürburgring and said, you know, he should win from pole. And of course, he got wiped out at the first corner, which has been, as we've been saying, this pole position problem, the curse almost of being on pole. Spa, he was out of luck as well. So he was effectively 43rd at Spa, 32nd at the Nürburgring and 27th at Barcelona. So, yeah, Jordan's been relying on that Silverstone win for points. Ben Barnicoat's hard luck tales go back to Silverstone as well, because remember, he got involved with Crestana. He battled back to second place, but then with a heavy car, he was only 27th at Spa because the weight really went against him. And then last time out at Barcelona, he was involved in the first corner skirmish. So you've got two instances there for him where coulda, woulda, shoulda. And as you and I have been saying all the way through this, a 5-round championship doesn't give you much leeway for a bad score, does it?
No, absolutely. Especially, well, with one drop score, it almost does, but with two, then you're going to be in trouble, aren't you? Hopefully, we are now going to speak to the champion of the SRO Esport GT Series, Louis Delatraz, has joined us. Louis, congratulations, the champion after 5 rounds. How does that feel?
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm super happy. It was a long championship, and today was definitely difficult because I knew quali pace was up there, but the race pace with the 25 kg of BOP was difficult, really difficult. So I had to stay up there, and I'm very happy we made it. So thank you to everyone.
How worried were you when the race got underway? Because obviously you were slipping back from Di Lorenzo and Jordan Pepper up at the front. You had a bit of contact with Fender in the early laps as well. Were you worried you might get penalised for that?
I definitely was a bit worried because obviously there was some sort of contact, but I think the main problem there, because from my screen, I didn't really touch him. I was super safe. I didn't mind losing the lead, and suddenly it spun around. So there must have been contact in game, but he had some trouble with connection all the week. So maybe there was something like that happened, and I really was worried to get a drive through. But I'm happy that race direction there was nothing on purpose. And obviously, I feel sorry for him because there's never an intention to spin someone around.
Yeah, David.
How much of that race, Louis, was you not having the outright pace, and how much were you thinking about points, just keep out of trouble and bank the points to win the championship?
Well, I just went this morning when we had quali. I said I just do it as a normal race. I push as much as I can. I was really happy with my lap with Paul, but as I said, I knew race pace was difficult. So I think you saw on the broadcast, I didn't take any risk in the opening laps. If someone dived on me, I let the space in because I really didn't want to be in any trouble. And after that, I just did my pace and see where I ended up. So I'm still quite happy with that, even though I had big pressure from Ben in the end.
Okay, well, huge congratulations, Louis. The SRO Esport GT Series champion. Well done.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Strong week for Louis, because of course he won the Le Mans 24 Hours last weekend as well. So the accolades keep coming for Louis Delatraz. We can now speak to Jordan Pepper, I believe, who finished second in the race today, pressuring Luigi Di Lorenzo right to the end. Jordan, how was that race for you?
Yeah, thanks guys. A bit unfortunate, I got traffic from one of the Ferraris in qualifying, which maybe could have had a shot at front row. And I think knowing the track so well, I live 10 minutes in the real world from Kyalami, my home back in South Africa. Knowing it so well, it's an amazing driver's track, but to overtake's quite difficult, especially in GT3 cars, and in the sim it's the exact same. And I got to him. The Aston's got a lot of bottom end power. Obviously, there was the issue at the beginning with Louis and Fender. Again, like Louis said, I think must have been a bit of a netcode issue, which is a bit of a shame because I think it would have been a good battle. But once I cleared him, I was a man on a mission because this championship hasn't gone my way. Obviously, won at the beginning and then got taken out 3 times in a row. Once where with Ben, which was a bit unfortunate with same issue what happened with Louis here. But just my luck didn't fall my way, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna win it or bin it. That was my attitude, and I made a bit of a bold move on him. I guess it didn't pay off. I maybe should have stuck it in a bit further, but in game with this game, when your nose gets touched, you get spun around immediately. So it is what it is. I made a late charge again, and he was just solid today. He made no mistakes, and credits to him.
Okay, well, congratulations anyway in your second place, Jordan, and see you hopefully on the real track in the future.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be there in Imola, hopefully pushing for the win with K-Pax.
Great, see you then. Imola is the first race in the GT World Challenge Europe competition. The 9th of July is the first GT World Challenge race, which is at the Virginia International Raceway in America. We've also got the aforementioned Ben Barnicoat with us, so we can have a little chat with Ben. You were outside contention for the title coming into this race, Ben, but it looked as though qualifying was where it kind of started to not work out.
Yeah, well, firstly, big well done for Louis for winning the championship. He was, the best all the way through. He kept himself out of trouble and just picked up points every race. So well done to him. Yeah, to be honest, qualifying was a big struggle for me. I'm not really sure why. I've been sort of back on track in the real world this week, which has been great. So my preparation hasn't been as good. I didn't have enough time to get the laps in and the miles that was needed. So yeah, quali was tough, and I was thinking, oh, it's going to be a long a long hour in the race. But the race pace was super strong. A little bit off in the beginning, but as soon as I had like 35 minutes left, yeah, it was great, and managed to catch Mike O'Brien. He was very kind and sort of was very generous letting me past. So big thanks to him to help me in the championship. Then yeah, caught Louis at the end, and I had to go because I didn't know where Marcucci was for the championship. I think I might have just got third. I'm not sure. So yeah, had a go at him. Didn't quite pay off, but no, still really happy to get fourth from 16th on the grid.
Yeah, Adders?
Nearly, but not quite, Ben, wasn't it? I suppose there are hard luck stories you can pinpoint, whether it was Barcelona or whether it was Spa with the extra weight. And we've been talking about what a short championship this is. So, you just can't afford to be out of the points, can you, with only 5 races, really?
No, exactly. I mean, when I had my good days, they were really good. Like, I've had a fourth, a second, and a first here, but then the bad Spa was terrible. We really struggled there, and in Barcelona, I just kind of got caught up slightly in the aftermath of that turn 1 crash. So, but that's part of the game. I still really enjoyed it. And it's been a great fill-in for while we've not been on track. I mean, the pressure that you kind of feel in the qualifying in these sessions and the racing and being consistent, that's all stuff that's quite tough to replicate at the moment in the real world with what's happening. So no, it's been great, and yeah, it's a shame that my bad days were a bit too bad in order to fight for the championship. But yeah, I've still enjoyed it and glad to have been one of the front runners throughout.
Yeah, well, you certainly have been. Congratulations, Ben. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So great to hear from Ben Barnicoat there, Jordan Pepper, and the champion in the Pro class, Louis Delatraz. Watty, some final thoughts on the Pro Cup for you?
I mean, I think it's all about continuity and consistency. I think Louis Delatraz expressed that on the racetrack. And I mean, Ben Barnicoat, I think that he would have been a much closer challenger. Obviously, Spa with the additional weight was a penalty. But what happened in Barcelona, for me, was the point at which I had to think that, well, his championship hopes have just begun to fade. And I just wish we could rerun the start, that opening lap into turns 1 and 2, and get a different outcome.
Yeah, indeed. Right, let's turn our attention now to the Silver Cup, because we have another champion to crown this afternoon, and I have no idea where the champion is going to come from here, because Patrick Selva is at the top of the championship on 45 points, 2 points ahead of Arthur Camara. Then Selva is 13 points clear of David Tonitza in third and Andrea Capoccia in fourth. But on the grid, it's Kamil Franchak on pole, Jack Keithley in second, Jan-Marcel Dietrich in third, championship leaders 31st, Camara's 35th, David Tonitza's 11th. What on earth is going to happen, Adders?
Well, basically, Jack, you get a pin and you get an entry list and you integrate Part A into Part B. And I think because we're coming into this with 7 drivers, mathematically, who could all win the championship, part of the problem, you've just identified Patrick Selva and Arthur Camara being, well, basically still at the airport. They're so far away from the front of the grid. They are McLaren drivers. Now, McLaren locked out the leading positions last time we raced. That was at Barcelona. And you get weight for the brand for first and second and third. And that means that all the McLarens basically need to go to Weight Watchers because they've all gained 52 kilos going into this race. And that makes a massive amount of difference. Added to the fact, as we can see, it was wet for the qualifying session as well. So you've got the wet to contend with and you've got a really lardy car to have to cope with. The net result of that is that the top 2 in the championship, as I say, are way back on the grid. Kamil Franchak, the man who is on pole, is the driver 7th in the championship. Now, of all the days to get your best qualifying, this is the one, isn't it?
Yeah, an absolutely superb lap. We're on board with Kamil Franchak here in his onboard lap for pole position. And Ben, we're seeing the weather here that we've seen. Oh, 2 wheels on the grass. That's a bit risky. We've seen the weather in Assetto Corsa Competizione before, and it looks as though we're going to have more wet action for the Silvers, which really does mix up the order, doesn't it? I guess like in real life.
Absolutely. We're at just 16 degrees track and air temperature and 50% rain and track conditions. So this is actually worse than what we saw in the Nürburgring. It, of course, has the ability to change throughout the 1 hour race, so it's not fixed at all. But visibly, it always looks a little bit worse than actually what it is in game. Those big white streaks across the screen looks like it's actually pouring down. But 50% wet and 50% rain is pretty bad.
Yeah, going to be fascinating to see what happens in the race, whether it becomes a little bit more chaotic than we are perhaps expecting. So it will be Kamil Franchak on pole position, Jack Keithley in second spot, and Jan-Marcel Dietrich in third. Jesus Cecilia starting in fourth. He's got to be a driver that's in with a shout at us.
Yes, definitely. And he needs to be effectively 5 places up on Selva to do it, and that's certainly doable. And of course, Cecilia is in an Aston Martin, and we've just seen Aston Martin win in the pros. So, yeah, I think Cecilia comes into this with a good chance. It's not a definite. It really is wide open, really is. And of course, you've got the pinch point of turn 2, and you've got the weather to factor into all of this. It's going to be absolutely outstanding, this. But you've got to survive. If you can survive the race, suddenly you've got a chance.
Yeah, well, the Silver Cup is the class for the drivers who are some of the top sim racers in the world. You'll recognise some of their names. David Tonitza, a 2-time Formula One esports champion, in 11th. He's third in the standings. He is going to need a good haul of points to try and overhaul Patrick Selva up at the top. I think he's another where it doesn't seem impossible for him to wrap up the title, but he's been kind of Mr. Consistent throughout the season, hasn't he? He's always qualifying in that 7th to 12th bracket.
Indeed. I mean, you've got Andrea Capoccia as well, who is another driver who could do it. There are so many potentials in all of this. Amir Hosseini, incidentally, just to quickly make a point about him, he's been given a 2-place grid drop because he kept stopping on the circuit and resetting in qualifying, and the stewards did not like that, Jack.
Okay, so we are just a few moments away from the start of the rolling up formation lap in the 5th round of the SRO Esport GT Series. Thank you very much for joining us throughout this 5-race campaign. It's been a lot of fun. It's been really cool to see top-level GT competition with the real drivers from the GT World Challenge powered by AWS, and in this silver class for the top sim racers in the world. Patrick Selva is leading the championship coming into this final 1-hour race. Arthur Camara is only 2 points behind him, but they are starting 31st and 35th on the grid respectively. No idea what's going to happen in the upcoming 1 hour, except that it's pouring down with rain. Let's go to Ben Constant, Juras, John Watson and David Addison for the finals.
It is the final race of the SRO Esport GT Series, the Silver Series in the rain. It has been, as Jack rightly says, an outstanding competition. John and I have been welcomed into and educated into a whole new world known as sim racing. I'm loath to want it to end, really, because it has been great fun. We've had great entertainment, and there is more to come over the next hour. Before we get into it, just a quick thought. Bearing in mind the horrible news that has been coming from Italy this week about Alex Zanardi, who of course was part of the SRO family when he drove within the GT World Challenge in the Sprint Series, and of course has been in the total 24 hours of Spa in seasons past as well, and the accident he had on his handbike a few days ago. We of course all send our best wishes to Alex and the rest of his family and hope for all the best in his recovery. So, John, we're ready to go racing. The heavens have opened, the grid is formed. It's a 7-way shootout for the championship. What more could you ask for?
The rain to stop if you're a driver, that's for sure. Interestingly, if you're a McLaren driver, you might as well just pack up and go home now, because they're going to be, in the 16th, 17th rows of the grid. Visibility, David, we know what visibility is like at this racetrack in these conditions. But on the other hand, if you're a fan of Bentley, well, there are 4 Bentleys in the top 8, and we saw how well Jordan Pepper could have arguably won that race, maybe if he hadn't been a little bit quite as ambitious. So it's an open, anybody basically in the front half of the field could think, I could win this race. As far as the championship is concerned, you'd have to think that it is still the McLaren drivers. Possibly Jesus Sekila might have a go, but it's going to be dictated by the weather. If it keeps raining, conditions will be difficult. If it starts to go wet to dry, then you've got to think about your tyres. Do I take the chance, maybe having to make a tyre change for slick tyres, or will we run the entire race in wet weather conditions and therefore stay on the wets?
Ben Constanduros, this is properly wet, isn't it?
Absolutely, as I said a little bit earlier, 16 degrees track temperature, 16 degrees in the air, and it is time of day quite early on as well, still 5 o'clock in the morning. So cold conditions. Will it dry up? I don't think the rain is going to stop, but of course by circulating this many cars, we may well see a little bit of a dry line appearing as the race progresses. Great to see a Lamborghini on the front. We haven't really seen much showing from Lamborghini since that first race in Monza.
Absolutely right, and it's good that it is Kamil Franchak there, former SRO esports champion. In fact, he was last year's on-site champion, the pilot and instructor trained by the US Air Force, and he's about to try and get the march on everybody else now on the run down towards turn 1. It is the final round of the SRO eSport GT Series. The silver category is about to be unleashed on a very wet road. Green lights on, green flag is shown. It is blast off, and Franchak it is that gets the drop on the opposition as they head down towards turn 1. Right there behind him, look though, it is going to be Jack Keithley who finds a gap on the inside line. Has he got the grip? No, he's into the side of Franchak. They both go out wide, and that's going to give Jesus Cecilia the race lead. So the Aston Martin driver up from 4th on the grid just gets himself ahead as the rest of the pack wriggles its way now up towards Barbecue. It's a rather extinguished Barbecue in these conditions, but for the first time of asking them, through the gloom and the spray they turn along the short straight up towards Sunset, and there you've got Jesus Cecilia who's managed to get the race lead, John.
Yes, an absolute skating rink. You can see a lot more cars in the sim race than we had in the pro race, and therefore visibility is another factor. It's going to be virtually zero visibility as they all bunch together. They're just so concertinaed, but at the front the Aston Martin has made that sort of mini break halfway around the opening lap.
Giorgio Simonini there running in 3rd place, so Simonini has made a good start because he was 8th on the grid. Race leaders surge through, and there another of the quick Lamborghinis is 630, Gregor Schill's car, the Grasser Racing E-Team entry. So Kamil Franchak then came here as a possible champion, started on pole, but with a bit of hip and shoulder from Jack Keithley. Of course, it's all gone pear-shaped for him. He's dropped down the order, and so Franchak started at the front. He's now 5th, but Jesus Cecilia here leading the way, and that is really good as far as he is concerned in the championship. Can he outscore the likes of Stelva, Camera? Well, the opposition to him for points is going to be David Tonitza, but he right now is out of the points as they come to the end of the opening lap.
Yeah, well, any of the McLaren drivers and Ferrari drivers, Tonitza would have been a challenger, but certainly right now, here's Cecilia. Again, Aston Martin, clear track. He's got what the best part of was it coming across 1.2 seconds advantage, but the big advantage he's got virtually a clear windscreen other than the rain that's hitting it, but he hasn't got spray from those other cars that are close to him, and certainly those in this, well, even in the top 10 will be struggling to see where do they break, and that was probably the issue that occurred going into turn 1. Both front row drivers didn't want to concede, brake too late, and that's what was the consequence.
Now there you see 123 Bentley on the attack, that being Mike Nobel's car. He went well in the charity Monza race, if you recall, and he's on the attack here. But Cecilia leads the way, Jack Keithley 2nd, Simonini 3rd. But as Franchak fends off the Bentley, Ben Constanduros, we've got a couple of drive-throughs already for Murphy and DeSalvo. Drama in the background there, but those drive-throughs are going to shuffle the order, aren't they?
Yeah, we've got drive-through penalties for Eamon Murphy and DeSalvo for not the right position at the start. Seems to be quite an easy thing to pick up. We also had a Mercedes spin round at the back of the pack in turn 2. Tim Heinemann still in the pits from that. Will Tregurtha being picked up in problems on that first lap, and Adam Pinchnesh. Shout out to Jack Keithley though, because remember how good he was at the Nürburgring in the wet conditions. Another car around in the middle of the pack. That's Eamon Murphy, who's got a drive-through penalty, hasn't taken it, and now is catching up with other people.
So Jack Keithley, having done well in the wet at the Nürburgring, is going nicely here as well. But for that hip and shoulder at the first corner, might have been the race leader. Just wonder whether anything will come of that, because of course, yes, it will come from that. A drive-through for Jack Keithley for causing a collision at turn 1. So 2nd he is, but the penalty looms then, and that's going to, of course, help those behind within the championship. We ride on board the Porsche here, John. You can see the rain, you can see the spray.
But he's staying way to the right-hand side of the racetrack, so he's avoiding all that problem there. You can see the contact that occurred between the Bentley, just simply couldn't slow down and quick enough hit the Lamborghini fair and square in the rear, and quite rightly in this instance. Sorry, Jack, mate, but you've got to take a penalty.
Now, right now, Jesus Cecilia leads the way. David Tonitza is in, 10th place. That would be enough for Cecilia to have the championship. Now, where is Capoccia? He is out of the points as well. And Niels Nuyok 21st, Patrick Selva 23rd. Blimey, they have got a very long 55 minutes ahead of them to try to gain anything to get them into the point. Jack Keith in his drive-through now confirmed look on the totem pole graphic on screen as Mike Nobel goes for a prize. Number 123 Bentley. He is currently 8th on the back of Alexander Vromont in the Lexus.
Although I was sort of saying that the McLaren drivers might as well just stay in their hotel room and watch this on television, they've done pretty well because they were starting back, middle 30s on the grid. They're now up to the low 20s. Okay, it's easy in the opening laps to make up positions. That's what you do in the opening laps of a race when you've got lots of cars around you. It'll get more difficult as this race progresses, but there's so many other factors which are beyond the control of the driver. The biggest, of course, is just the rain is still falling. You will get eventually, although you hopefully, if the rain stopped, you would have a drying line. But as long as it's continuing to fall as it is, there are parts of Kyalami which are prone to flood, of which one is on the edge of the Sunset. So that's a corner you have to be very wary of as you go close to the curb on the exit. Don't catch the standing water.
Enzo Bonito to the inside of the Bentley. Contact! Mike Nobel gets fired off the road. I suspect the officials will want to look at that, won't they? Bonito then forced out wide. David Tonitza gets up ahead of him and gains another couple of points as a consequence, but it's all kicking off, John.
That was, I would say, pretty rude.
Well, I think Mike Nobel would agree with you. No peace prize there, was there? Mike Nobel off the road. In the meantime, however, Jesus Cecilia is getting away from Simonini. And then in third, it's the Porsche. Jan-Marcel Dietrich having his best showing of the Esports Championship. Doing a good job there.
Yes, indeed. So the Porsche again, showing strong in these conditions. We see it coming into that lovely corner. My favourite corner at Kyalami, that Sunset. A couple of Ferraris, in fact, and the Porsche then following through. Beginning to open up a little bit, that packing that we saw on the opening lap, that bunching, that's all effectively weather conditional. Everybody's had to find space so they can actually see where they are. And visibility there you can see on board, not fantastic, but at least there's a degree of visibility. Most in these occasions, you're looking sideways to get your reference point, particularly when you're coming up the hill here into Leerkop, to know precisely where you are. Where will I brake?
So there you see 155 Ferrari, Enzo Bonito. He's got Luca Losio behind him, and then Tariq Gamil in another of the Bentleys, proving the point about them being well suited to this circuit. Tariq Gamil in 10th place, but the best he's had all year is 15th, so good that he's going nicely here. Replay of the dramas. This is what happened to Mike Nobel, John.
Oh, there's never a chance. I thought he was going to go in the pit lane. The Bentley was even squeezing coming down. He was looking for his own track position. Ferrari launched itself down. Of course, when he realised the gap was closing, nailed the brakes, even with ABS, wasn't going to stop.
So right now, you've got Jesus Cecilia in the lead of the race, and it's a wet race. And of course, he was the winner at the Nürburgring, which was a wet race. So car and driver seemingly well suited to these conditions. And Cecilia has really had it all fall at his feet, hasn't he? He's got the conditions, he's got the track, and also he's got the McLarens all ballasted up way, way, way behind him.
And you didn't mention it, he's got 2 no finishes, so whatever points he scores here are his. If he gets 25 points, he is looking very strong indeed. He would end up with 56 points. We've got, 51 minutes remaining? Long way to go, but certainly right now, Jesus Cecilia, as long as he doesn't make an error, and he's got 3.5 seconds advantage over Simonini in the Audi, so he doesn't have to put himself under pressure. He just doesn't need to put a wheel wrong.
Exactly. The drop score rule, incidentally, is only, or was only, for the pros. So the Silvers, they keep whatever they get. Sorry, yes, I should have said that at the start, John. But it's only for the pros, interestingly. However, you're right about Cecilia. All he's got to do, is just not make a mistake. In these conditions, that might be easier said than done. As you look there at Chris Sevet, number 333, heading up the hill, trying to gain a place on the inside, but he can't do it. Kamil Franchak is on the attack as well. Remember, he was down to 5th. He's up to 4th now in that pole-sitting Lamborghini, riding here with Jaroslav Honchik as they come down the hill. Now, question for Ben that might throw him under the bus a bit. It's not meant to. Ben, do we know within the game whether the conditions are set like this for the hour, or is there a chance of the weather improving, or does nobody know?
There's variability in the setting, so it is set to continue to rain, but it does change the intensity throughout the hour, and of course, depending on the amount of running, we'll see a racing line progress or not.
Yes, we may, as you say, depending on just how heavily it continues to fall. On board with Jaroslav Honchik now, the former real world racer turned esports influencer, Fiestas and BMW 130i Cup racer. And here he is, look, on the back of Axel Petit as we go down towards turn 2, hard on the brakes. Can he find a way through here, John?
He can try and make the undercut. I don't think he's going to be given an awful lot of space. I don't know if that was contact or not, or whether just the image flickering on Chris managing to hold the Lamborghini back at that stage. Certainly there was an opportunity, but it wasn't a big one. The one thing I will say about Kamil Franczek's Lamborghini, currently in 4th place, that's run by the FFF esports team. And if it's anything like their race car, they've discovered something with these Lamborghini Huracans to understand how to make the car work, both in wet and dry conditions. So while the car is at the minute backed up behind the Lexus in 3rd place, there's still an awful lot of more time for Franczek to find a way through. And you never know. You never know.
That running a little bit wide look is Honchik, his teammate Jaroslav Honchik, off the road and back on again, and very nearly getting mugged. He is being mugged by Chris Sevet, who goes round the outside. You've also got Josh Parker and Philippe Simard in the mix as well as they plunge downhill once again. But right now, up front, Jesus Cecilia looking oh so strong. 49 minutes on the clock. Where are these McLarens getting themselves to? Selva still only 23rd. Niels Neujoks, though, now he is the man that's 6th in the championship, and it looks, Ben, as though Neujoks' progress is good compared to the other McLaren drivers, and he's a very experienced sim racer, isn't he?
Yes, exactly. Niels, is he the best of our McLarens by the looks of things?
Yeah, I think he is.
Obviously, as you said, they're carrying all that horrible weight, so very vocal coming into this race about why is it wet, why is it dry. You humans can choose whether it's going to be wet or dry, and I think that the idea is to kind of mimic what we saw last year, and obviously the Kyalami 9 hours was a wet race, and therefore that's why they decided to go. He even got the stats out and said, but there's only 2 days per month that it rains in Kyalami most of the time, so why is it statistically 100% raining here? He was getting very statistic and German about the whole thing, but not in the points yet.
No.
But pace is good, as you say.
Indeed. I'm pretty sure all the days that John and I were there last year, we got wet on every one of them, never mind just 2 out of the month. So there, place change. Honchik back through on the inside of Chris Sever. But Niels Neujoks 19th. Might not sound a lot, but he is chipping his way forward, bearing in mind that he started 32nd on the grid. As you see, 85 there, Jan-Marcel Dietrich. He is on the back of Simonini, and he's got Franczek behind him. So suddenly, John, the battle pack for 2nd, 3rd and 4th, very close.
Yeah, I mean, the lead's gone in effect. I mean, it's 4.6 seconds, so the Aston's cleared away, but this battle for 2nd place is that's just getting closer and closer. So whether the Lamborghini, which I think ultimately in lap time potential is the quickest of these 3 cars, can he get through and avoid that kind of unfortunate contact that he was the victim of on the opening corner virtually on lap 1?
Well, here they come over the timing line once more. Jan-Marcel Dietrich, now having lost out to Kamil Franczek, sits in the spray down towards turn 1. But John's point about Franczek's Lamborghini and the pace that in the real world the FFF racing team, headed by Andrea Caldarelli, has found in these cars is being borne out in esports racing as well. He's on the attack, quickest in the wet in qualifying. Now, where is he in relation to the race leader? Yes, he is 3rd on the road, 4.8 plus 9/10 of a second is what he's got to make up. So he's got to get past Simonini, and then could he catch Cecilia? Do not bet against it.
Yes, is my opinion.
I think you're right.
He's got the pace. He got past the Porsche relatively easily. He's got now to find a way. The Audi, which I assume with 46 minutes remaining, ought not to be a massive problem, albeit they're both running fundamentally the same engine and not a massive difference in the actual mechanics of the car, just the aerodynamics, the bodywork that is the significant difference between the Audi and the Lamborghini. But back up the hill, up into Leerkop, the gap, the first to second, is just under 5 seconds, and then it's a further 1.5 seconds. So let's say it's about 6.5, 7 seconds between third and first place.
Well, right now it would be Jesus Cecilia for the championship. Enzo Benito gets a drive through. Now that's significant because it would bring Andrea Capoccia into the top 10. Capoccia is another of the magnificent 7 here going for the title. Riding on board with Franchak, throwing everything at this, as also is Giorgio Simonini just ahead of him. Franchak closing right up as they come to Ingwe, turn 16, and now hustle the cars onto the pit straight once more.
So have a watch and see whether the Lamborghini has got more fundamental bite both at the front and the rear. Identical power units in the Audi and the Lamborghini, so no loss, no gain as they come down in to turn 2 at Crowthorne. Marginally, well, quicker, slightly quicker anyway, through Crowthorne, then this quick flick through Yuxke, then up the hill, brakes into the left-hander at Barbecue. Now, well, don't run so wide as that, you'll lose some traction on these very wet, slippery, painted curbs at Kyalami.
And were Franchak to be able to get ahead of Simonini, could he bring down that gap to Cecilia? Well, on qualifying pace, yes, because remember he was on pole and Cecilia was only 4th fastest. As they're going through is David Tonitza, so he's up into 7th, so he's scoring, but he's being outscored clearly by Cecilia, but that will be enough to give him 2nd in the championship. But equally, Tonitza needs to try and keep on gaining ground here.
And
Very
David,
much
you
so.
mentioned Capoccia. He's dropped to position, actually,
Oh, he has,
since you mentioned him. And that was Husseini going past. They're very, very close, but it was a very slow lap last time through from Capoccia, which has dropped him down to 12th and back out of the points again.
Right.
Well, that kind of helps Tonitza a little bit because it puts him slightly more comfortably, although he was ahead of Tonitza's ahead of Capoccia, so fractionally more comfortable.
Yeah, Tonitza needs to be building within that top 7. He just needs to keep on scoring because with Cecilia taking the maximum haul here, that's enough to give the Spanish driver the championship. Where are the McLarens? Selva is still 20th, not even into the top 23 yet. He's Arthur Camara, who we spoke to for the pit lane, the SRO podcast after the last round in Barcelona, and he was delighted with his win, but really negative about his chances here, and they're being borne out, especially with the rain. As there, Tonitza, another experienced esports racer, goes over the line. Behind him, Enzo Benito with his drive-through, and that is for causing the collision with Mike Nobel that we saw at Ingwe a few laps back. No surprise there, John.
No, I mean, just going back to the McLaren, the big penalty McLaren suffered was in qualifying. In the race itself, it's a different matter, but by starting so far back, I mean, on the 17th and 16th rows of the grid, you're always going to lose out so much on those opening laps as runs wide in Sunset, just getting caught as the Lamborghini slides up the inside, and that was just an error at that. That was Simonini.
So that gives Franchak 2nd place, doesn't it now?
It does.
So the man who could yet take the championship, well, he's on for 2nd place, but if he can get ahead of Cecilia, because it's 25 points for the win and 18 for 2nd, things start to change markedly within the title race. And Simonini is coming under attack from the Porsche. Yeah, Marcel Dietrich in the Rover Racing colours, inching up onto the back of the Audi here. But now we need to monitor Franchak's pace, and that gap, it starts at 6.3 seconds now against Cecilia with 42 minutes to go. It's game on, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I don't know whether Cecilia needs to do any more. Presently, he doesn't. He's still got a very comfortable advantage over Franchak in 2nd place, 6.3 seconds. But that starts to drop. We've got 42 minutes of this race remaining. If he starts taking half a second a lap here, 2/3 of a second a lap somewhere else, that time will evaporate very quickly. And it's still a long way to go. So right now, I would say Franchak is the favourite to win this race, but Cecilia must be favourite to take the championship.
That is Bonito serving the drive-through penalty. Past all the bedraggled mechanics and marshals on the pit wall. And slowly makes his way, of course, down the pit lane, but also down the order. He will drop as a consequence of this. Right, 6.3 is already down to 6 seconds for the race lead gap. So as they come now out of the extinguished barbecue and down towards Sunset, Franchak is on an absolute mission, and so is Dietrich here to get third place in the Porsche.
Yes, I think Simonini is the one that is in third, fourth place cars that is struggling the most. There you could see the race leader just going into the S's. There is second place Franchak in the Lamborghini. Gap was 5.8 seconds, waiting for the second checkpoint around the lap to give us an indication as to whether the Lamborghini has progressed even further. Certainly looks to me to be, I haven't got a timing and scoring in terms of lap time, but looks to me to be the quickest car currently of this leading group.
Ben, what can you elicit from within the game? Is Franchak nailing his whatnots to the wall here, throwing everything at it?
This is his best lap so far, so he's in the green as he comes towards the last part of the lap, and he should be. This should be his best lap of the race. In fact, Cecilia did his best lap of the race last time through, which was a 47.5. Franchak is going to be, I think, maybe even in the 46.9. So that Lamborghini is flying right now. Tonitza really needs to clear Vromor. Tonitza's got way more pace than Vromor, and at the moment is being held up. And the only way that he's going to get himself a championship here is if he gets past this Lexus and gets himself into clear air.
The Lexus having a sort of Bentley feel to it, you know, big front engine car. We know the Bentleys have gone well, and the Lexus is doing a solid job, isn't it, in 6th place. Lead gap then 6.3, now down to 5.3. And if Franchak wins and Cecilia takes second, Franchak is champion by 2 points. So it's not just the battle for the race lead, it's the battle for the title, pure and simple now.
Well, that's as close as you're going to get it, and that's what it should be all about. So the gap between Cecilia and Franchak is going to be, well, both drivers are going to be on the edge of their driving seats. The Lamborghini should run it down. The only issue I would have is, if he runs it down, can he make the overtake? Will there ever be the opportunity? Or will Cecilia be able to do enough and manage to make the Aston Martin sufficiently wide all the way around this 2.5 mile, 4.5 kilometre lap?
Also depends how long it takes Franchak to catch, because he's catching, no question, and we've still got just under 40 minutes of this wet race still to go. Jaroslav Honchik goes through, Chris Sever next in the queue. Jack Keithley 16th after his drive-through penalty towards the rear of this little gaggle of cars. Will Tregertha 25th after being delayed early on. Patrick Selva 20th, and that drive-through for Enzo Benito putting him down to 18th. And there, look, a dive up the inside and contact. Chris Sever elbows Jaroslav Honchik out of the way, and Jack Keithley gets involved, and off they go.
Well, I think that was a bit of cause and effect. The Bentley got caught up unintentionally in that moment. The Lamborghini stepping sideways on the exit of Leo Kopp, and there wasn't very much that Keithley was able to do. Whether that will be viewed, I suspect, will be a bye for Keithley. I don't think he could be blamed for any contact that would have occurred.
Race leading gap, 5.1 seconds, still coming down. 12 of them are in the book. 38 minutes still to go. Simonini third, Jan-Marcel Dietrich fourth, Chris Hooker having a good run. He's fifth. This is the fight for sixth. Then Alexander Vromor just ahead of David Tonitza. Now, if Tonitza could, get past that Lexus, he might start making progress and might start gaining points and might get back into the mix for the championship. But right now, he's absolutely stuck, isn't he?
Well, you got that lusty, I think it's a V6 in the Lexus, against the more hyperactive, high-revving twin-turbo V8 in the Ferrari. So whether it's all about drivability, and certainly the Lexus sort of mid-engine, front-engine GT car, working pretty well, and certainly able to restrain Tonitza directly behind him, nothing he can do.
It was a Lexus second, wasn't it, in the wet at the Nürburgring, Hani Al-Sabti.
Yeah.
So, but further proof, you're right, it's that kind of car. In contrast, the Ferrari, not ideal for these conditions, which hurts Tonitza just a little bit more. As there going through is Jack Keithley, who's been yo-yoing up and down the order. More contact, putting him in 15th place now. But hustling on in the Bentley, but disappointing, given that he started right at the very front, on the front row of the grid. Penalty and then an incident.
Yeah, I mean, he was the guilty party in that particular incident into turn one. In these wet weather conditions, it's always better to err on the verge of caution rather than the verge of adventure. And of course, you're concerned that those that behind might be trying to do the very same thing that you're doing and have that concertina effect. But Jack Keithley or Knightley was the one that clearly was at fault, and the penalty has been served, and he's got himself in the middle of this pack. And what's that all about? Was that 5 for?
It was Tobias Pfeffer getting it all wrong and rotating. So we've had a spin at that part of the circuit in the pro race from Jordan Pepper. Now Tobias Pfeffer having a similar moment. Meantime, down towards the kink goes Jack Keithley. He's got Schill and Sever battling just ahead of him for 13th and 14th places. And through on the inside line goes Gregor Schill. Good move, that.
Yeah, he had it all done. He was actually alongside as they came through the kink. And all he had to do was make sure he got his braking spots correct. And the Lexus wasn't going to be able to do anything about going around the outside. So the position has been made a clean, good, judged and executed overtake.
Now, Ben, the McLarens, Niels Neujoks, 17th. I know they're still a taxi ride away from the points, but they're creeping up the order. Possibly people's penalties and drive-throughs are helping here, but they are creeping up the order. And we've got a replay, before we go back to the McLaren conversation, of Chris Sever versus Jaroslav Honchik. That was Sever going for the gap and Honchik turning across, and then Jack Keithley with almost nowhere to go getting involved. But Ben, the McLarens doing their best, aren't they? Inching up the order.
I mean, they're not massive pace, as you would imagine. Niels Neujoks' best lap is a 48.5 in comparison to 47.0 from Kamil Franczak. So they certainly don't have the pace. But as you say, patience is key here. And I think as more and more people get involved with each other and penalties are given out, they will slowly move up the order. Maybe not enough to actually pick up a point or two, but Neujoks and Selva running together in 17th and 18th.
And where are we up to with the lead gap? It had been coming down. We're looking at the leaderboard from third lower. So is 5.1 being reduced much now?
So last time through, Franczak did a 47.6 and was matched by Cecilia. So it is 3.6-ish seconds the gap now.
Okay, so it's certainly come down from 6.3, which is what we had at that starting point when Franczak bagged second place. Okay, thanks, Ben. So 3.6. Oh, it's now gone up, 4.6. So suggesting Franczak has had a moment somewhere, maybe. There you've got David Tonitza, who is finally ahead of Alexandra Vromont. So now Tonitza is up into 6th. What does that do for the championship? Well, it puts him equal on points with Franczak, but both of them behind Cecilia.
But the thing is, for Tonitza, finally getting past the Lexus. Now we can focus on those cars, the Porsche. Let's have a replay and see where that move was made. There's the Lexus just ahead, coming out of Sunset, down into Clubhouse. This is up through the S's, and this is following then 4th placed Dietrich and Hoyke as they come up the hill. So the Ferrari made that pass. Now he's got to do it all over again once he catches up to the first of the two Porsches. That's the Chris Hoyke car in 5th place.
Yeah, so now that he's ahead, Tonitza is on the move, isn't he? He's getting away already from Vromont. Luca Lucio is 8th. Tariq Gamil's best of the season is 9th. And Amir Hosseini, who we've talked about a lot, but the results have never really come within the championship. Remember, he came to prominence in the charity esports race we had from Monza. And Amir Hosseini, with a 2-place grid penalty, is up into the top 10 ahead of Andrea Capoccia, who is therefore another driver waving farewell to championship aspirations in all of this.
David, just watching some of the stars, particularly the Tonitza, coming out of the penultimate corner, they're running a lot of curb. Now, you do that in the dry because it's there to be used. But in these conditions, is it something that a driver has the same level of feeling through his sim, doing it in the wet as he does in the dry, or are they just running the curb and hoping to get away with it?
Good question. One for Ben, I think, that, as our sim expert. What do you think, Ben?
It doesn't look as though they're losing as much grip as you would expect in the real world when they ride those curbs, does it? They look like they've still got the traction, and what the curb gives you is a sense of where you are on the circuit and the feedback through the steering wheel, so you'll get the vibration as you run them. But, as we also spoke about in terms of a wet line and a dry line, that classic thing of kind of running into a corner and running around the outside because there's less grip there in the dry, but it's more grip in the wet. Again, we kind of spoke about it in Nürburgring not being so much of a factor here. It is simulated if the track has already been gripped up. Oh, that's contact for 3rd.
Yeah, that was Simonini got contacted by the Porsche, so that'll be probably a penalty. So the two Rover Racing Porsches have now, one way or the other, elevated themselves up to 3rd and 4th place.
Absolutely right, but I'm sure the stewards will have a look at that. the drivers would say, oh, well, it's, wet road, just couldn't stop in time, but the stewards may feel different about it all. As there, you've got Tariq Gamil now on the back of Luca Lossio. So that's 8th and 9th places, Porsche versus Bentley. And Tariq Gamil having his best showing of the championship, which is good to see.
Yeah, again, has to be careful. Almost clipped the back of the Porsche, maybe the Bentley in these conditions, the slightly more easy car to manage. He goes way to the right to make a better exit, coming out of in way onto the start-finish straight. You can see the Bentley using the different exit line to try and get the traction, try to get the power, but to really no avail. Porsche's done sufficient to be able to consolidate that 8th position as they make their way down into Crowthorne.
Ben, just have a look at Jesus Cecilia, because more than others, we've now lost the graphic just as we see the tap that puts Simonini out of the way, but on the graphic, that little yellow bar after the driver's name in front of the brand means internet connection is poor, and it's just a little bit greater for Cecilia than, say, Franchak or Dietrich. If Cecilia were to have a disconnect, that would be a really, really cruel way to lose a championship, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. I don't think there's any problems with it at the moment. I mean, you have to look to Sever there in 13th position for somewhere you might be a little bit more concerned about. But, anything can happen across an hour race. Somebody might decide to pull the plug on your machine, or the internet just might die in your area. So it's totally possible. It's totally random. And it's one of those things that, we don't have random things in sim racing that you would have in the real world. But that is one of them that is kind of a mechanical failure for your rig or your setup, I suppose.
You might have an 8-year-old who is obsessed with Naomi's Nightmares of Nature, which is another strain on one's internet, he says in a loud voice, hopefully being heard through the door. So, Jesus Cecilia leads the way by 3.9 seconds from Kamil Franchak and Jan-Marcel Dietrich. Now there, David Tonitza in 6th place. He's got a chance, John, hasn't he, of getting onto the back of the Audi and gaining a place and gaining points before much longer.
Yeah, and the Audi, remember, recovering from that tag in the rear up at Leocop. So I would suspect that Tonitza will think, maybe that's an opportunity for me just to get back onto the tail of another competitive car, i.e. the Audi, and do what I need to do.
Tariq Gamil's Bentley there on the back of Luca Lossio as they go by. The lead gap, interestingly, went from 6.3 to 3.9, but it's not shown much in the way of coming down after that. It's stabilised for the moment. We've only just really tripped into the second half of the race, but it's not plummeting in the way that Franchak needs it to do. This is Lossio versus Gamil. This is 8th and 9th we're looking at, with Amir Hosseini behind them.
Yeah, and Gamil really all over the back of Lossio's Porsche. He's had a couple of looks to try and find a way through. Coming up to Sunset, not a place you'd normally think to overtake. You do your homework and get yourself positioned. Maybe get yourself over to the right-hand side of the track as quickly as possible. Well, Lossio's done that very thing, so that's sort of cancelled out any benefits that the Bentley might have hoped to gain. So really nothing lost, nothing gained by this battle for 8th place.
Nose to tail they run. Amir Hosseini inching up behind them. Lead gap 3.6, 3.7. It's hovering around that area, but it's not coming down the way that Franchak needs it to do, and he's fighting for a championship here. If he can get the lead of the race, he gets the lead of the title race as well, and therefore will win the championship. So there's a lot on the line here. These next 27 3/4 minutes, very important for Kamil Franchak as Lossio plunges down the hill, kicking the spray into the face of Tariq Gamil here.
Yeah, but down the hill.
Cecilia's definitely found a bit of pace here. He's just done his fastest lap of the race, and he's just matched that again that last time through. This time Franchak just a fraction faster, but last time a fraction slower. So I think Cecilia has found something over these last couple of laps that he couldn't find before.
Okay, interesting. John, what about Gamil here in the Bentley? Can he get past this Porsche or not?
He's had a look, he's had a go on a number of occasions, but the Porsche seems to have enough squirt coming out of turn 16 onto start-finish straight just to deny the Bentley the opportunity. And now here's a chance. You might think that plunge down into the inside, take the corner away from the Porsche. Gamil isn't prepared to do that. He wants to be certain, which is probably in these circumstances, knowing if you do make a contact with the car, you will be penalised. So what he's doing is fundamentally correct. We just want to see an overtake, that's all.
Well, there is one, and that is Jaroslav Honchik getting up on the inside to go through. Gains the place. So that now puts him back ahead of Patrick Selva. Selva was briefly up into 19th place, which had, therefore, been good going.
Yes, I think any of the McLarens, Noix is up to 17th. He's the lead McLaren. And if they can get into the top 15 in these conditions today, well, they'll be disappointed overall, but that's the price of success back in Barcelona. Top 4 positions won by McLaren in the previous round in Barcelona. And the penalty is you got to carry the what do you call it?
Ballast.
Ballast. And you began with B. Oh, the Audi runs wide. Ooh, well.
But there's another penalty, John. Look, because Jan-Marcel Dietrich, the Porsche driver, in third, has been given a drive-through.
Yeah, because he tagged the back of Simonini's Audi.
That's right.
That was almost an opportunity there for Tunizia, because Simonelli ran wide, coming through Cheetah, I think it was. So little mistakes beginning to creep in, whether it's just a function of driver error or whether it's a function of the pressure leading to the driver error. And you can see that Tunizia looks again to have the speed in the lap, but not sufficient speed to make it on the few parts of the racetrack where you can make clean overtakes.
Well, Tunizia is creeping up the order. Is it too little, too late? He is at the moment set for second place in the championship behind Jesus Sicilia, but Sicilia is away and gone, and he's had a really interesting season, hasn't he, in terms of good results, bad results. It's really been a yo-yo season for him. Indeed, Sicilia last time out 41st, didn't do the Spa race at all, so he's only done Silverstone, Nürburgring and Barcelona, 9th, a win, and 41st, and it could be another win, and it could be the championship, and he would be the first double victor out of either of the SRO Esports Series, Pro or Silver.
Well, Tunizia, just looking at the body language of his car, I would say that's not looking too bad. He needs to clear as quickly as possible, and he's not been able to do that. The idea of Simonini directly ahead of him, and there you can just caught the glimpse of the third place Porsche. If he can get himself past the idea onto the tail of the Porsche, then you could have a different outcome in this championship.
Very true indeed. But right now, Sicilia is in the box seat, isn't he? He's 3 seconds to the good. And although that gap is coming down, it's only by fractions. It's not coming down by that much, with still just under 24 minutes to go. But Tunizia, well, he could be the danger here if he can keep chipping his way up the order. For as long as Sicilia leads the way, though, Tunizia can't do it, because even if he's second, he'll be 2 points behind Sicilia if Sicilia wins the race. So Tunizia has got to be the race winner, just like Franchak has got to be the race winner, because it's 25 points for the win and 18 for second.
So what would happen if Franchak wins the race? Sicilia is second and Tunizia's third. Who's got the calculator for that one?
Franchak would be the champion, and Sicilia would be third in the point, and Tunizia... No, tell you a lie. Tunizia and Franchak would tie on points, but because Franchak would have won the race, he would win on the tiebreak.
Yep, that's reasonable. The winner should always get the benefit in a tiebreak.
Yeah. So there is, to coin a phrase, everything to play for here, John.
You might say that. I wouldn't, but you're right. No, it is. It's a very, very difficult race in difficult conditions, and the gaps between the lead 3, or certainly the lead 2, only 2 points. Then third and fourth and fifth place are covered by 5 points. So it's a much more difficult equation. But you have to think that Patrick Selva and Arthur Camara were planning to come here, knowing that they're going to carry a 52 kilogram extra weight. They didn't imagine it was going to be a wet race as well.
Yeah. They've come here for the wine, I think, not for the race result. Now,
Ben,
Ben,
a lot of whining after this race, I can tell you.
You're not wrong. Ben, what's going on in the lead? The gap's down all of a sudden from over 3 seconds to 2.2. Has Sicilia had a moment somewhere? What's going on?
Yeah, this is a slow lap for Sicilia, 47.9 that time through, waiting for Franchak to come over the line. He did a 47.1, so he took about half a second last lap, but that was a slow one from Sicilia, and we are going to have them squabbling over the same bit of track soon with 1.8 seconds now separating them. It's looking very exciting. Now, the difference between this wet race and the Nürburgring wet race, remember, Nürburgring was only 30% wet, so it was actually, although it didn't look it, on the edge between wet to dry tyres, and we used up. Everyone had no grip. This race is much wetter, so I don't think we're going to get the kind of the overheating of the wet tyres like we saw at Nürburgring, and therefore we won't see that massive change in performance if we get to the end of when we get to the end of the next sort of 15 minutes.
Okay.
The lap times are still incredibly good.
Okay, interesting stuff. Thank you, Ben. 1.7 seconds then from 6.3, which was our starting point between Cecilia and Franchak, the top two in the race, and about to be, of course, fighting for not only the race win, but the championship win as well. And there is David Tonitza, who is also on his toes, trying to get himself up the order.
Yeah, the Audi Simonini's done a strong job. He's not made a mistake. The Ferrari, I still maintain, is in a lap the quicker of the two cars. But if you can't manifest it by finding your way through. But there is the battle that is about to become a battle for before the victory, as the Franchak in the Lamborghini. There's the Aston just going. So the gap was 1.9 at the last checkpoint. And now you can see that Franchak using every bit of the wet track and the wet curbing on the exit of the penultimate corner.
To the line they come. 1.9 seconds at that last timing point. 1.7. So just as we saw in the pro race, it's a catch-up job going on here. Catch-up races are always fantastic. Down towards turn 2, then goes Camille Franchak hunting down Jesus Cecilia. Chris Hurkert running third, now ahead of Giorgio Simonini. Tonitza is 5th, Roman 6th, Lossio Gamil Hosseini, and the penalised, now recovered, Jan Marcel Dietrich round out the top 10. Tonitza on the inside line, had a think about it at turn 2, and then thinks better of it. Slots back in behind Giorgio Simonini here. But Simonini goes wide, John.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the opportunity to get through, and he's done. He's taken the. So the Ferrari's got through, but you've got to look behind just the Lamborghini, or sorry, the Lexus, the third car in this group of 3, just all quietly has managed to maintain position. So we're not going to see the Lexus win this race, but we're going to see the Lexus still have an input into the outcome of the top 6 positions.
On board with Roman now. Down through the gears, that's Tonitza. So he is now in 4th place. What does that do to the points? That gives him 44 against the 40 of Franchak, but the 52 that are going to head the way of Cecilia if things stay as they are. Lead gap down a little bit further, 1.6 seconds. There's still just enough time, isn't there, for Franchak to do this?
There's certainly plenty of time, in my view, for him to catch up to the back of Cecilia, but whether he will ever manage to make a way through is the old question, whether you catch and you can overtake, or whether you can just simply catch and you just get bogged down. But it's the pace of Tonitza, which is interesting, because he's now got a 3.6 second gap to 3rd place Chris Heuker in the Porsche. Very doable against the same Sidori. Catch, but can you pass?
Well, there through the rain is Capoccia out of the points. So one of the drivers who came here pitching for the title, struggling to get through the pack. He is on the tail of Amir Hosseini, who is behind Jan Marcel Dietrich, whose impressive showing ultimately comes ready to naught because of the drive-through penalty that he suffered early on. 1.4 seconds now to look at that lead gap, coming down and down.
Yeah, bit by bit.
Jack Keithley, look at the back of this little group, could yet get himself into the points, couldn't he?
Well, if they're running in 13th place, you know, 17 to 18 minutes in real terms, you never know. Just all you need is one little incident, one sort of tag on the rear of one car to set off a chain reaction, and that's where it all goes. So Andrea Coppia, like somebody who, in my view, 4th in the championship, 31 points, where he started in the grid, ought to have had an opportunity slightly better than those in the McLarens, that's for sure. And Coppia, in fact, started in the 10th row of the grid. He wasn't that much better off than the group of McLarens, but certainly starting 20th is a lot better than starting 32nd.
Absolutely right. So there going through is the charging David Tonitza. Makes the climb up the hill. The Rebellion clock showing just over 17 minutes of the race to go. Whoops! Right into the back of the Aston there goes Tonitza.
Well, that will catch the eye of the race director. When what that was all about, I don't know that. Now, the Aston was out of position.
Yeah, it was back marker, wasn't it? Yeah.
Back marker, but nevertheless, whether that will be viewed in those terms or whether it will be viewed as an avoidable incident and therefore needs the penalty, I don't know.
Well, they got the Aston out of the way, no question about that. Brutal way of doing it, mind you. As there, Tariq Gamil makes a look to the inside of Luca Lossio, diving down through mineshaft into Crocodile.
It was Will Tregurtha in the Aston Martin.
Oh, was it? Right, okay. It was a long way back, therefore.
Certainly looking at this battle over the back of Lazio for all these laps, still trying to go up the inside, down the outside. Porsche manages always to get off the corner that little bit better than the Bentley. This time, maybe, because the Bentley is closer. Now he's going to look, there's a defense from Lazio. Bentley is forced to go up the left-hand side on screen, sweeps around the outside, but will he be run wide? I would say that was Lazio didn't need to be that discourteous.
Well, the Porsche hangs on to its place, but will the stewards intervene? We will find out. Keep an eye to the race direction channel in Discord as Luca Lossio then hangs on to the place ahead of Tarek Gamil for the moment. Jan-Marcel Dietrich's Porsche is 9th and the leading gap is 1.3 seconds, so Franchak is still chipping away, isn't he, at the race leader? But all of those chips that he's been cooking are bringing the time down. We're down to only 15 minutes and change now, and he really had half the race in which to bring the gap down when he got second place. So he's taking his time about it, as there you see Lossio and Gamil climb the hill towards Leukop.
Yeah, the Bentley's going to make another, or the Fully's going to try and do something on the run up into Leukop. He looked up the hill, he goes to the outside of the Porsche, looking to maybe get up on the exit, the second part of Leukop, get alongside in the run down the mine shaft, but not able to do it. Just go back to Franchak, he's managed to close that gap down to 1.3 seconds, but it's as if he hasn't got anything left. He can't really, well, I say that, he's taken 2/10 out in that last sector. He's down to 1.1 seconds. So maybe Franchak has got a little bit more pace, but certainly it's not coming through as obviously as his pace initially to get down to that 1.1 seconds behind the Aston.
Well, the track conditions still nasty. You might argue there's a dry line in places, but it's still pretty foul out there. But can we get this gap to less than a second? It was 11/10ths, it's still 11/10ths, and you're on board with Tarek Gamil, still running in 8th place, staring at the back of Luca Lossio's car as they come over the timing line. Now down towards the left-hander at Crowthorne. Could barely be any closer, could he, to the John Alesi Esports entry?
No, I mean, Bentley just runs the Porsche right down into Crowthorne, but it's off the corner that's important. Into the corner is about you do your job and don't open up any gap, but make sure in doing so that you've got the throttle and the traction off the corner, and that's why we're seeing Lazio able to consolidate for what's been the best part of 15 or so laps now. Bentley up the inside and Sunset gets the job done, steps, the back of the tail steps out. A little bit of a nudge now. That was an opportunity, the best opportunity, and may also open up again this time up the inside, and the Porsche I think will be compromised into the S's.
So Tarek Gamil has finally done it. Yes, through he goes on the inside line as Lossio ran wide. Gamil does the job. He goes through, puts himself now up into 7th position. Jan-Marcel Dietrich in the Porsche is catching as well. Amir Hosseini 10th, also doing his best to join the party. And the lead gap fractionally wider this time with 25 laps in the book as they head down the hill once again. But Tarek Gamil then now up into 7th spot. There's the confirmation as they get to the next timing point. And with 13 minutes to go, Franchak running out of time to go after Cecilia for the race win and for the championship win.
It's strange that the gap between first and second, 1 minute, there's now a second and 0.96. It was 1.1 something. It's literally between the sectors on each lap that we're seeing little losses or little gains between Cecilia and Franchak in second place Lamborghini. Waiting to see 1.122 with just 12.5 minutes of this race remaining.
Ben, a point that John made very early in this was how many more cars we have in the silver race than we did in the pro. Now, are we getting to a point, and especially with lap times because of rain, where traffic is a factor for the race leaders, or is that not an issue yet?
I think the traffic was mainly down to people who had been caught out in big problems early doors.
Okay.
Obviously, we saw Will Tregurtha. He was caught up in an accident in lap 1, so he's a full lap down. It looks to me as though most people are on the lead lap, and Cecilia doesn't seem to have too much traffic ahead of him at the moment.
Okay, so in other words, Kamil Franchak can't really hope for that. There are the leaders, and Tonitza 4th has got a drive-through look. David Tonitza, another driver fighting for the championship, is given a drive-through penalty. There are the race leaders. If anything, the rain there looks to be getting heavier as Cecilia finds the puddle on the outside of the road. The gap is 1.2 seconds as the car just slithers across the curbs.
And that's definitely losing time. You can see just in those last two corners, the Lamborghini has almost halved the distance between them as they came down the mine shaft. Now, Aston Van Cecilia, was he responding to pressure or was he running simply out of grip?
Well, the gap's virtually halved now, isn't it? 7 tenths.
is,
And Tonitza's drive-through is for hitting Will Tregertha. We saw that up at Leukop. So there are the leaders, and Cecilia now knows he's in a motor race. Although the Aston still leads the race, still leads the championship, things could change as we are about to break into the last 10 minutes. It's going to go down to the wire, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the gap suddenly has become a gap which is going to make stand up on his toes. It's under a second. I can't read my screen, 0.84 or something of a second, the gap between first and second place. And now, with clear road ahead of the Aston Martin, there is a clear sign of traffic that's going to become a factor in this battle for the lead and also the battle for the championship.
This is Franchak's view. Climb through the S's up the hill here. Under the gantry, heading up towards Leukop. 0.8 of a second the margin last time. Closing under braking, but the danger, John, is he's going to go deep and the car washes out.
Well, that's a problem you've got to just make your judgment on. You can see the beginnings of a part of the racetrack that isn't, it's not dry, but it is less wet. So that means, again, what it's going to do to your set of tyres, if you're already using the tyres, it takes away all those nice sharp edges you had when the race began, when on a wet weather tyre, when the grooves, the edges of the grooves become rounded, then the grip drops away pretty dramatically, pretty quickly as well.
We've also got...
Go on.
Go on. No, after you. I was going to say, we have got the line of traffic just starting to appear further up the road as well. So, although it's not yet a factor, by the end of 10 minutes, might they have caught those back markers? We will see.
Two cars, David.
Okay.
Just Kamil Palowski and Adam Pichnej, Aston Martin and Lamborghini.
How convenient.
Then there's a big gap.
Okay. So, as the cars work their way then up now towards sunset, that lead gap's gone up again, hasn't it?
It's gone up fractionally. It's up to just a second and a thousandth or so of a second. But clearly, these two lead cars are going to catch up. And that's what you're going to see what Tonitza did. Yeah, well, that was avoidable, and we called it at the time, and the penalty has been... so Tonitza's got a drive-through for that. But there is the gap between first and second as they come down through the S's. And that's just on a second, up the hill, up into Leukop. So the gap between these two cars and the cars that are about to lap, where are they? Well, they're out of sight right now. The second part of Leukop, down the mine shaft, through the left-hander, probably just about tippy-toeing through there, not knowing if there's going to be any more standing water or not.
So 8 minutes to go, and there is the Aston Martin, Heitor Cecilia, race leader. And behind him is the man fighting for the race win, fighting for the championship win. So Kamil Franchak was 0.961 of a second back at the last timing point. Through they go, down to 0.7 of a second. But now, John, it's all elasticated, isn't it? One timing point it's down, the next it's up. Yeah. It's not a consistent catch by the Lambo.
No, it's been like that pretty much all the race. I mean, both drivers have had different sector times, inconsistencies between the two cars. But now, with the battle being so close, that's almost irrelevant. But what is going to be relevant is those two cars. Here we see the Mercedes and I think it's the Lamborghini, yes it is, coming through sunset. And these two lead cars with just over 7 minutes this race. If I was in the car in the Aston Martin Cecilia, I would be trying to modulate my pace and at the pace of Franchak to ensure that I don't catch up to these two cars further down the road. I don't want to get involved in finding a way through. They may not know I'm there, or in some cases, they don't know who the hell you are.
So remember, it's effectively who dares wins in all of this. The first one across the line out of Cecilia and Franchak will be champion. And Kamil Franchak needs to find a way by here as they come through Leukop. But is he close enough to have a go? No, not yet. He's not, and he's running out of time. This elasticated gap has gone up again to 0.9 of a second as down the hill they come through the rain. And they are closing a little bit further onto those two back markers up the road ahead. Cecilia will see them.
just how do you balance your pace against the pace of the two cars directly ahead of you, and at the same time not give Franchek hope that that's what you're doing, because when you're driving a racing car, you're not just doing the driving bit. You've got to think about what would happen when I catch these two cars. 6 minutes to go, you've got the best part of 3 and a bit laps. I don't want to catch up to these cars, but I don't want to give Franchek the signal that that's what my plan is.
So there you've got them heading down through turn 2, but we're running out of time now. We've got just under 6 minutes to go. And if Cecilia is thinking about trying to defend, well, and not get too close to that traffic, Franchek is going to have to make his own arrangements here. He's going to have to really dig deep and somehow try and prise open this door. Thus far, Cecilia has not made errors, despite the foul weather conditions that are in game for Kyalami. Out of Sunset he goes, 30 laps, completed 0.8 of a second between them.
News, though, is that those two back markers, they will have a leaderboard as part of their heads-up display, and they'll be able to see cars in front and cars behind and what those cars are. So they will they will see that those two cars, the next two cars on track behind them, are first and second. Problem is, they are kind of arguing over themselves as well, aren't they? They're having a bit of a fight. So how much they're paying attention to that, I'm not so sure. They have the information, though.
Is there any
Sorry, remember, in sim racing, you haven't got a lonely soul standing in a marshal's post waving a blue flag at them.
John, you've taken the words. I was going to ask Ben if there was such a thing as a virtual blue flag on your display. That's right?
Absolutely,
isn't it, Ben?
yeah, exactly. So you'll see the blue flag come up, and you'll also have a spotter in your ear telling you that the leaders are coming up behind you. So in fact, in a way, the virtual world has a hell of a lot more information than you do in the real world.
Not sure I approve of that, John. What do you think?
Well, you know, the real world is a different world altogether. This is sim racing, and I tell you what, I mean, it's pretty amazing that in these extremely difficult circumstances and conditions, that the drivers, the pro drivers, I call them the sim drivers, but they are the professional sim drivers, are doing actually a pretty outstanding job. And they're managing to race. Okay, we've seen a couple of unnecessary incidents. Tanitsa, for example, that was an avoidable incident, but he got suckered into it. He wanted to get past a back marker, and he just ended up hitting the back of the car, and consequently he's knocked himself all the way down. Well, I can't even see him where he's in the 13th place, and he had a chance to get on the podium.
Indeed, that was that drive-through that did for him. Somebody put a comment after one of the rounds about commentators being negative towards the sim racing world. I don't think we have been. I think we've all been mightily impressed by the game, by the graphics, by the ability of the people doing it. And John and I, as total newcomers to the sim racing world, we've certainly had our eyes open, John, haven't we? And for the better.
I mean, I think it's beyond imagination. To have a race, I mean, if you walked into your living room or your friend's living room and this was on television, you would not know that this is a sim race. It is, the replication is so outstanding. And the drivers, you look, this is what a racing driver does, but these are sim drivers. In fact, I think Jensen Button pointed out the other day, someone told me that he believes that now sim racers are being able to understand what racing cars do, not necessarily in wet conditions, that a racing driver, a proper racing driver, may not actually ever explore. So there is going to be an even bigger crossover between sim racing and rail racing, because these sim guys are exploring things that racing drivers haven't had the thought or imagination to look at.
It's fascinating, isn't it? I quite like Andy Merrick's story. Andy, who's racing in GT World Challenge Asia later on this season, and he was watching the charity race from Monza, and his wife walked in, looked at the screen, looked at him and said, "That's Monza, why aren't you there? You're meant to be racing," and was completely suckered in by the fact that the graphics were so good. Now, we've got 2 minutes of the race to go. There's time for this lap and one more I would offer you, and it is game on for the race and for the championship. Jesus Cecilia has done a masterful job thus far. Can he hang on for just under 2 more laps, John?
And what we didn't quite see, or maybe I missed it, but we've got the 2 lead cars getting through those back markers cleanly, so no gain one way, no loss the other way. The gap is just under a second at 0.9 of a second. So this is Cecilia's race to lose and Franchek's to win. And I think at the minute, everything's stacked up in favour of the Aston Martin and Jose Cecilia.
And I would offer you that gap is...
Cecilia.
Yeah, I'd offer you that gap is widening again, isn't it? Franchek almost as though he's given it his best shot, and hasn't been able to do it, and now he's settling. But Cecilia looks
It's
safer.
not really that. It's actually that Cecilia is kind of matching his pace. He's looked at the pace of the car behind, and he's done his best lap, just that last lap through. Franchak just thousandths of a second off his best lap. So the two of them are just on a massive push, and they've managed to get past traffic at the same time.
I think getting past the traffic was key to the outcome of both this race and the championship, and the fact that both those back marker cars and the back insight that Ben gave us about how you're advised cars behind which cars they are clearly played a pivotal role in the outcome of this race.
More battles lower down. Axel Petit there, who is the last of the scorers, but he might get dislodged here because Jack Keithley in the Bentley is not that far behind him.
I'm just looking to see where the Bentley is. Oh, there it is, the third of these 4 cars. So you've got the Lexus in between, and that's Petit. Oh, that is Petit. I was looking at the Audi. Sorry, I was looking at Capuccio. So the potential championship winner in 9th place. So that's not going to do him any favours. As we go back down through the field, Simonini, or up through the field if you like, under challenge from the Lexus of Vermont.
Interesting that Luca Lossio had a pit stop just a few moments ago. That's the car that's now just ahead of our 2 leaders, the next bit of traffic. And straight back out again, almost as though he did a pit stop and changed tyres or added fuel.
Fuel, I was just thinking on if it was fuel. Yes, interesting. Well, it's cost him a whole heap of time, and it's given Tariq Gamil his best result of the championship, potentially 6th. This is Vermont. Right, the clock has hit 0. Where are the race leaders? Because the gap is going up again. It's 1.3 seconds. I think Fathilia has done it. You could argue deservedly so as well, because he's dominated this race. But Jesus Cecilia is the race leader. It'll be the flag this time. Whereabouts are they on track, Ben? Can you spot from within the game?
40 seconds to go.
Okay, as we ride with Vermont. And there they are, heading downhill. So Jesus Cecilia is set to be the first SRO GT Esports Silver Series champion. And Kamil Franchak has thrown everything at it, but an absolutely exemplary drive by Cecilia managed to keep out of the trouble at turn 2 at Crowthorne. And since then has mastered the conditions, controlled the pace. And so Jesus Cecilia is going to be the first double winner of either championship. He's going to become the first winner at Kyalami, and he's going to become the first champion in the Silver Series within the SRO Esport GT Series. Over the timing line, Jesus Cecilia wins. Kamil Franchak takes 2nd, and that's your top 2 in the championship, with Chris Hooker on target for 3rd to make sure that he is in the Rover Racing colours of his best finish of the championship. The Porsche blasts its way up towards the line. And still they battle. Giorgio Simonini versus Alexandre Vromont for 4th and 5th. Tariq Gamil is going to be good for 6th. But Roxy, first of all, Cecilia's drive, outstanding.
What was good about it was that he saw what happened at the turn 2 on the opening lap. He avoided that, was able to stay clear of that accident incident between Franchak and Keatley. And he then, once he had the lead, he used his strengths of his Aston as well, and just drove a superlative race. Under pressure at the end from Franchak, but nothing he could do. Franchak was just powerless when it got down to the last 10 minutes. He couldn't run that point, whatever it was of a second. Never got in position to try and make an overtake. Cecilia, superb drive, worthy champion.
Absolutely. Alberto Garcia, a little bit further back, 21st on the tail of Eamon Murphy, who I think we saw in strife early on in the race. Murphy is on the back of Kwitniewski as they come over the timing line, but it is Jesus Cecilia. What better way to win a championship than by winning the race? And if you've enjoyed all of this, incidentally, ACC, Assetto Corsa Competizione, is available on PS4 and Xbox One from this Tuesday. If you go to acc.505games.com and pre-order it from there, you get the Intercontinental GT Challenge Pack for free, which includes the team's liveries and the circuits, namely Bathurst, Suzuka, Kyalami and Laguna Seca. So acc.505games.com if you want the ACC platform, or the game rather, on your PS4 or Xbox One. Well done, Jesus Cecilia. What a drive. He wins the last round of the Silver Series in the SRO GT Esports Series from Kamil Franchak. Chris Hurker's best of the year nets 3rd. Giorgio Simonini 4th ahead of Alexandre Vromont and then Tariq Gamil. Jan Marcel Dietrich 7th ahead of Ami Hosseini. 9th was Andrea Capoccia, so he did get himself into the points, but not enough to influence the title outcome. And Jack Keithley from the front row to a drive-through to a spin to 10th place. He salvaged something out of a difficult and wet afternoon. But Jesus Cecilia, what an outstanding drive to be the first double winner of the championship. He's the Rainmeister, that's for sure, because he won in the wet at the Nürburgring. He wins again in the rain at Kyalami. But this time with it, he wins a championship. And Jack Nicholls, what better way to take a title than by winning the actual race. Brilliant performance by Jesus Cecilia.
Yeah, and what a great way to see a title decided as well. The two protagonists in the end going head-to-head over the final few laps. Cecilia holding on. Kamil Franchak will join that long list of drivers in the SRO Esport GT Series who will think, oh, what if? What if I didn't get hit at the start? What if I didn't get muddled up in that melee at the first couple of corners? And what if I'd had that tiny bit more pace towards the end of the race? So those are our two champions, Louis Delatraz in the Pro Series, Jesus Cecilia in the Silver Series. And as you say, great to see the champion crowned with a victory. Hopefully we'll be able to speak to some of our front runners before too long in the Silver Series. And we will wait and see who we get in the room to speak to. But Watty, impressive stuff from Cecilia, just strong in the rain. To wrap up two wins in the rain to give you the title is pretty impressive.
Absolutely. Cecilia did everything he was required to do. He didn't, to me, put a wheel wrong. He got a couple of corners towards the end of a lap. He ran a bit wide, but fundamentally, he drove with his head. And we have seen, for example, Delatraz do that in the Pro Series. So intelligence and your skill, the two things go hand in hand. And that was an outstanding drive. There was pressure from Franchak, although it was coming from a little bit behind. Nevertheless, when Franchak closed down to the back of the Aston Martin, he couldn't make any further progress. And that was more, I think, to do with Cecilia being able to adapt up his pace when he needed to, but not push sufficiently hard where he might put himself into areas of making an error.
Ben, what are your overall takeaways from this first SRO Esport GT series that we've seen here on Assetto Corsa?
I love the way it's been formatted. The idea to equally show the sim races as well as our pro famous drivers, if you like, and just showcasing what is a stunning game platform, whatever you want to call it, in Assetto Corsa Competizione. It replicates real life so well. There are things that are obviously slightly different, but it's a great immersive place to be if you want to go racing.
We've made the point, Adders, after the first couple of races that you sort of commentated on and kind of understood it a bit more, this whole esports thing, you know, because initially you were probably a little reluctant, not reluctant to get involved, that's not the right word, but, you know, apprehensive, let's say.
Sniffy.
What did you make of the, sniffy, what did you make of the 5 rounds?
I've loved every minute, Jack, and I've learnt, as well as enjoyed watching the racing. And I think part of it is you could argue that it's the responsibility, or it's been down to how sim racing has been offered to the outside world in the past. Quite often, you might have a photograph of a lot of gamers sitting on a sim rig, which might be impressive in itself, but it's, for me, although I've been interested in hearing what drivers have explained to me about that, it's when you can see the real world, the graphics, that it starts to mean something. And when you have people looking at a screen and thinking it's real world racing because the graphics are that good, that's where sim racing needs to be sold, I think, to the outside world. We're lucky in this because we've had some fantastic entries, certainly for the pro race, and obviously a very high level of sim racer. You've been talking about drivers that have won Formula One esports championships. We've got the reigning SRO esports champion on the grid. Now, some people have said to me, not interested in that race because I don't know who they are. They're not real world drivers. I'm not interested. But to me, that's no different from the intake of Formula Ford 1600 drivers that you used to have every March going back 100 years. And they were all new to the circuit, and you learnt about them as the championship went on. And we've had that as well. So for me, yes, I've enjoyed the racing. Yes, I've enjoyed learning about a new world. But it has been just outstanding. And Ben's touched on this. I'm echoing what he said about the graphics, because when you see the liveries, the reality, the weather conditions, that is when you appreciate how good sim racing can be.
Well, Adders, this is a replay of the start that we're just seeing here. If we want to have another look at what happened with Keithley.
goes to the inside, loses it under braking, can't slow the car down, elbows Franchak out of the way, as it would be in the real world. But I think, Jack, you've got some drivers to go for.
Yeah, let's see. I think we've got Arthur Camara and Kamil Franchak to speak to in a couple of moments' time. Just waiting for them to come into the interview channel, but that was a replay of exactly what happened at the start. We'll get Kamil's thoughts on it because he finished second in the race, second then in the championship. Kamil, great to have you with us. Just unlucky today, I suppose. We've just seen a replay of what happened at Turn 1. What was it like from your point of view?
Hi. At the beginning, I just want to say that, yeah, as you've probably seen, I was going fully defensive, but Jack just wanted to be inside, and it couldn't like finish in a different way. So he pushed me away. He pushed me off track, but I worked my way through from P5 up to P2. But and yeah, I was able to catch the leader, but that was not enough to overtake him. But anyways, yeah, I had a chance for a championship lead, but it happens. So I'm still happy with P2.
Yeah, well, you should be. It was a very good drive. Congratulations, Camille. We've got, just see if we got Arthur Camara to join us as well, because he was a title protagonist going into the final round. We're getting a replay here on board of, and these are the kind of visibility issues you have in the rain in the real world, and also this is what it looks like in the game as well. Very difficult to pick up your braking points and to figure out where other cars are around you. So it always is going to be a bit more of a challenge in these wet conditions. Kamil, how difficult was the rain out there for you?
Yeah, so the track was new for me. I haven't practiced before this round 5, so that was completely new track for me. Also, rainy conditions are not easy because it's very difficult to replicate conditions from session to session. So everything changes, everything is dynamic. So it's not easy. You have to focus and find yourself on track and work your way to improve your braking points and so on. So it's not easy. It's not easy to go too wide through the corners because if you're offline, you basically lose a position. So it was not easy, but at the same time, if you know how to drive on wet, it's a big advantage for you.
Yeah, well, congratulations anyway on that second position. Arthur Camara, I think, is joining us now as well. Arthur, second place in the standings coming into this race, but qualifying saw you 35th. Was it just a ballast issue, or did you struggle with the rain?
It was, first of all, hi, and it was definitely a ballast issue. I think if you look closely, all the McLarens again were like in between 1 or 2 hundredths of a second, and as we always did, we all got everything out of the car, and being 35th, 31st, 32nd is just where we ended up then due to the ballast, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And so starting 35th, how did your race unfold?
Well, sadly, I found myself looking at a Mercedes facing my way after turn 1. I tried to take avoiding action, but got a heavy hit into the side and went off track again. And from there on, I was already like pretty, not happy with how it went, and tried to recover. But I always found myself losing out in conditions where other people's were able to improve, and I just was always facing people coming back on track and eventually, of course, losing out on them on the straight.
Yeah, well, we've just seen a replay of what happened to you in those opening couple of corners. Absolute chaos in the wet conditions. What have you made of this SRO Esport GT Series? Have you enjoyed it? How, I guess you're disappointed not to wrap up the title, but you've had a very strong year.
Yeah, considering this is my first international championship, I have to say, I think if I'm not wrong, I'm ending it in 3rd place, which is definitely a good start for something like this. And well, of course, I knew going for P1 wouldn't be possible with the weight, but yeah, coming in P3 now is very good, and I'm very happy. And also, I say congratulations to Jesus Cecilia, who I think has won the championship all around. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Arthur. Been great watching you race these last 5 or 6 events.
Thank you.
So there we hear from Arthur Camara, 2nd place man in the championship, Kamil Franchak. I don't think we've got Jesus Cecilia to talk to, unfortunately, but great to have him crowned the champion. Closing thoughts, Watty, on your first venture into esports?
I think coming from an era when racing drivers were still wearing cork helmets, the view I have is don't have a closed mind, because this is progress. This is a big part of the future of motorsport. We think of motorsport as going to a racetrack and standing out, getting soaked, getting frozen, whatever. But actually, motorsport is now embracing digital technology. And I have to say, I think it has been absolutely fantastic. And you know what? My birthday was the other day. I've managed to shave about 50 years off it. I feel about 24.
Great. I'm very happy to hear that. Ben, final thoughts from you?
I just hope that we continue moving forward with this kind of momentum that we've already had in the world of esports, and the relationship between sim racing and real racing. There's no reason to stop it. Yes, we go back to real racing soon, and I can't wait for that. Let's not forget these amazing period of time for the sim racing world as well.
Adders?
I go along with that. I think sim racing will continue to have a big part, but it might become a winter championship in quotes, because as real world racing kicks off, that's going to limit the ability, certainly for the real world drivers, to dedicate the time, as Ben Barnicoat was saying to you, to concentrate on sim racing. But we've certainly enjoyed these last few months. It has given us a chance to enjoy motorsports in a virtual world, but the only way we could. And this championship particularly has delivered outstanding racing, outstanding graphics, outstanding realism, and I have to say, I can't wait for the next SRO GT Esports Championship.
Absolutely. Well, the SRO Real World GT Racing will begin soon. The GT World Challenge powered by AWS America begins on the 11th and 12th of July at the Virginia International Raceway, and the European series gets underway on the 25th, 26th of July weekend at Imola. So make sure you keep across the SRO social media and YouTube channels for all of that action, and on TV as well, of course, where Adders and Watty will be bringing you up to speed with everything that's going on. A huge thanks to Ben Constanduris, to David Addison, and to John Watson for joining us for these 5 rounds of the SRO Esport GT Series. Everybody behind the scenes, everybody in Italy and Bergamo, and all spread around Italy as well, for putting this all down. There is going to be a grand finale of the SRO Esport GT Series, so keep your eyes peeled for that. We'll announce the date in due course, so we have got more act to come from the SRO Esport GT Series. But for now, it's just time to crown our champions. In the Silver Series, Jesus Cecilia, 2 wins in the wet, give him the victory and the title. And in the Pro Series, Louis Delatraz, a very impressive drive. He takes the championship in the Pro Cup. We'll see you next time on the SRO Esport GT Series. Thanks.